Curfew starts at 8.
Yes, going forward.
Yeah, now you should now start going towards home.
At eight. At eight.
At 8.
Then, lo and behold, you are stopped and you're saying, yes, I know it's after 8, but I thought curfew starts at 8. It does. Yes, I left work at 8.
So, by the way, you've seen what happened on Thika Road last night.
Again, there was the drama.
Yeah. So, police with their roadblock trying to deal with those that are in their books flouting the curfew. Many vehicles that stopped there had been stopped by the police. And then this truck. This is at that deep.
At the Utali Drift.
Around, not
Italy.
Italy.
Breweries.
At breweries.
Okay.
Going towards Allsops. So the deep truck comes.
Brake.
Truck, no brake.
Brake iffy.
Yes.
Oh dear.
Truck rammed into a police vehicle that now had just been placed
dear.
across the road.
Oh dear.
Truck hit the police vehicle, and there were some police officers inside.
That is not good.
Yeah. There were some injuries.
Yeah.
There were some injuries. Some suspected to have been fatal, but that information is not yet out on the fate of those that were inside the car. The civilian truck or the police truck. But it was a very unfortunate scene. And as that was happening, as now they were dealing with trying to rescue those that had been caught up in that, another truck again approaches. And it comes the same way. And it just afforded to stop just before hitting the other two. Or other motorists that had been held up in the traffic. Yep. So.
But Eric, if you're talking about Thika Road, if you consider the queues that we are seeing, the talking point is Kencom House. Man, those queues are horrendous.
Yep. Yep.
You're
Of
talking
people
yes.
stuck. And even that whole entire area where people pick up their mats for Eastlands, Latema Road.
Yeah, horrendous queues. And then people, social distancing is something you talk about and you read about.
Yeah.
People are back to back,
Yep.
neck to neck. Now you tell me.
Some thinking needs to go into this.
What are we solving here? This is Nairobi, epicenter.
Yep.
Now, here you are telling people to comply. Fine. Good point. But if compliance is going to put them in harm's way, in the real sense of the word harm's way, how useful is that compliance?
I'd be really interested to see how this is going to be worked through, because they did say that they want to look into the details and see what can be done. It'd be very interesting to see how they're going to, because there needs to be a plan. This cannot continue happening every day, because now we're seeing every day, at least since Saturday, that there's an issue. Sunday there wasn't much traffic on Thika Road.
But there was still some traffic.
But there were still people out at that time.
Yep.
There were still people who slept on the road Sunday night, coming into Monday morning. It was not as catastrophic as it was on Saturday. And then come Monday, we see this again. And we did hear from the regional commissioner that something would be done, that they will look into it. I think it needs to be done now, because we are going to, tomorrow morning we will have another story like this. The day after, we will have another story like this unless it's taken care of. And it seems that, police as well are resolute to make sure that people either are off the roads before curfew or sleep on the roads if they are not. That is what is going to happen. And then we have unfortunate situations like this where there are accidents, people are hurt unnecessarily. Something has to be done about it. The way in which this will be operated must change. Otherwise, we're going to have other stories and that we can't deal with.
Yeah, this I think it's important that the powers that be basically just look at this and think, what do we do? Just like I was saying yesterday, as some decisions, including talking about if matatus can operate until 9:30, 10 o'clock, so that it's easier, then people know that as I queue here, yes, I'm going to get a matatu. I'll be able to get home. But now people are all congregating here. You'll find that That Thika Road, by 4:30 p.m., there's already a gridlock.
Did you see yesterday? What were we looking at yesterday? We were looking at 2:30, and there was already traffic on Thika Road in and outbound. It was crazy. So you can imagine. Then
And you can
that was
imagine
not
how
even rush hour.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yesterday, because of schools, Form 4s finishing school. So you're talking about 1 million children from across the country who had finished their Form 4 exams and they were going home, and then a certain percentage of those who were coming into the disease infected
this
zone.
thing needs immediate action.
It does.
Not a lengthy debate that's going to take until next year. No. This one requires a solution in the here and now.
Yeah. Make a decision and do it now, because it's getting worse and worse.
Right.
Today, in the next 3 days, it's going to be terrible, because now, like as you say, children who are finishing the exams now have their special passes to travel home. You are looking at almost 1 million children traversing. Yes, there's some who are resident within their communities, but a lot of children are traveling around across the
They
country.
do travel, and many of them have to be accompanied by their parents.
Yeah.
Yes.
And many of these parents use public transport.
Yes. It's true.
So people shouldn't feel they're being punished simply for being Kenyans or for simply living in Nairobi, because this situation, if it remains unresolved, that's what people feel, that they are being punished.
In as much as your intent is pure, the way in which you go about it can completely taint all of that, completely. And it needs to be sorted out. It needs to be figured out today, not tomorrow,
Yep.
today.
We'll have more on this conversation later on in the show. Keep it right here. Let's start with the COVID-19 and what the numbers are looking like and how the situation is looking like around the world.
Sure. 142 million cases, what we're looking at worldwide now. We have about 10,000 new deaths as of yesterday. Started off the day at 3,030,000 and 6 deaths, and that number has risen by about 10,000. 10,000 people lost their lives to COVID around the world yesterday. We're still looking at high numbers coming out of certain countries, but let's look at specifically what's happening in Kenya and then what's going to happen in terms of vaccines. So AstraZeneca seems to be a no-no, and we'll give you details as to why. Kenya now has 151,894 cases totally. Those are the numbers that have been compiled since last year. 2,500 is the number of people who've died from COVID in Kenya. That's 2,501. Yesterday, there were 241 new cases and 20 new deaths in the country. Still continue to look at that number as from today. Now, it's a blow for Kenya, is what is that story today, as plans to buy more vaccines has hit a snag. Kenya's dream to vaccinate at least 25 million people by the end of the year has suffered a fresh blow after plans to directly acquire vaccines from manufacturers hit a snag. The government says a severe shortage of COVID-19 vaccines globally has seen it put on ice plans to buy Johnson & Johnson vaccines and the AstraZeneca from the Serum Institute of Kenya. So we know India had the issues that it did, were not able to produce in the numbers that they were hoping to. And now it's hit everybody else. Of course, there was the whole complaint of vaccine hoarding by those nations who had the muscle to purchase. And now those who didn't will be in a little bit of a problem. The new vaccine orders were to add to the COVAX and Africa CDC doses to help achieve the inoculation targets set by the Health Ministry. Initially, the plan was to vaccinate 1.25 million people between February and June in the first phase, 9.7 in the second, and 4.9 in the third, which was slated to run concurrently with phase 2, totaling 15.85 million people, so as to achieve a 30% immunity. Now, according to the chair of the National Task Force on Vaccine Deployment, he yesterday said that besides India and Western powers stopping vaccine exports, the world's biggest vaccine collaboration, that's the Gavi Alliance COVAX facility, and the Africa CDC have acquired most of the doses at the institute, making it hard for individual countries to place direct orders. So they can't do this right now, and it's a challenge because they say, what are we going to do? We also saw reports coming out that it's possible that Kenya will now purchase the Pfizer vaccine because we're not able now to acquire these other two.
These are...
Yes.
You know, that's why the other day when you said that Kenya has now changed its strategy and said, how many millions people? I was like, huh? What do you mean?
It was not me who said. I was telling you what
Don't
you
you
when you
just
announce
get
it.
this feeling that we're being played yet again?
properly. I mean, what is it?
We'll cross our fingers that the one shot that we got
We'll cover you.
is enough.
It's enough.
Okay.
And no, what you do. You got one shot. The second shot now is prayer.
Yeah.
Actually, it isn't. The,
Shukuru Mungu bwana. There are many.
I
Let me
didn't
tell
even
you,
get one.
In a
see,
country of 47 million, if
You
you're
got-
among the 1 million that got, my friend.
there's a
Joker.
benefit to that hiatus. Huh? Apparently, the longer you take before getting the second vaccine, the better it is.
Yes.
Because whatever you have in your system is now given time to do what it's supposed to do.
But there's a ceiling.
There is always a ceiling.
Yeah.
But we haven't gotten to even thinking of that ceiling.
Yeah.
It is yet to come. Because remember, the next vaccination, according to the notice I was given, is in May.
Forget it.
It's not going to happen.
Oh,
see.
no. I wasn't even thinking of May. I'm simply giving the indication.
Okay.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
if
So
they
let's just
say-
talk about
yes,
May 2025.
If they said May, well, if they said May,
See, that's what I'm saying. There are benefits, yes, to not getting that vaccine within 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, maybe
Yeah,
3
still
months,
talking.
maybe
CT has moved on.
that's fine.
She's not here.
It doesn't mean
You know,
that
just
you
like-
that you stay 12 months, that they're even better. No.
increases your
Countries are already now talking about, in fact, these companies are already talking about the possibility of, booster shots, annual booster shots or something like that.
and you've not gotten your second dose.
the booster shots already exist. They have existed long before even the vaccine came into being.
Watch out now for the flu. Now they'll make a COVID-19 booster shot.
Of course,
That's why,
they-
in fact, now many of these big pharma were looking at the business. The business is in the long tail. So at some point, people will get that initial 2 shots, and then it'll become the norm. And we'll be making money forever and ever. Say amen.
Amen. No.
Very good. Let's talk about Standard Jobs. This is a website, a portal by the Standard Media Group, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Log on to jobs.standardmedia.co.ke and you will be able to see all the jobs that have been advertised on a daily basis by various people seeking employees. At this particular point, this is one portal that you want to make friends with, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. So go and subscribe to Job Alerts and you'll receive the latest relevant jobs from across the country. Do not be left out. And if you do that, basically you get SMS alerts or email alerts. The kind of jobs that are there: graphic designers, reporters in newsroom, 4 people, office administration manager, systems mapping youth economic opportunities, studio technician operators, technical operators rather. There's one for expression of interest of mapping of women rights organizations in Kenya by FIDA Kenya. Merchandise or client support services. All these and more. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Let's take a break. The live stream is up. SpiceFM.co.ke. We'll be back shortly.
(24/7) around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Kuza Broadcasting Awards 2021 is here. KTN Home has been selected as the People's Choice TV station, and we need your help to bring the award home. To vote for KTN Home as your favorite broadcaster in the People's Choice Award category, SMS the word Kuza to 15601 and follow the prompts. Voting ends on 23rd April 2021. Voting is absolutely free.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your Telcom line. and stay up to date for a reliable
All right,
source.
taking a look at what's happening in Nairobi skies today, we will see rain showers in certain parts of the city for some time. At 17 degrees, that'll be the low for today as well, going to highs of 24. It's also raining in Nyeri at 15, highs of 24 and lows of 15. 27 will be the high in Nakuru today, mostly cloudy conditions at 14. It's 15 and clear in Eldoret, highs of 24. 27 the high in Kisumu, light rain at 20. It's clear in Kakamega at 16, highs of 26 and lows of 17 today. Partly cloudy conditions at 25 in Mombasa. At 25 in Malindi, it's also partly cloudy. It's raining in Kampala at 20. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 24. 25 the high in Dar es Salaam. Light rain at 23. Opening up the morning, it's clear in Johannesburg at 9. Highs of 21 and lows of 10 today. Clear conditions, at least for a change, in Lagos at 26. Highs of 33. 29 will be the high in Kinshasa. Light rain this morning at 24. It's also 24 in Beijing. Highs of 27 and lows of 12 today. 6 and clear in Paris. 17 will be the high today. We're looking at 6 degrees. Clear conditions in London, highs of 16 today. And it's still Monday night in New York at 12 degrees. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 17 and lows of 10.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Very many people are online this morning.
This is true. Beta Ashley is rather, okay, so it's Bewa Macha. She changed it, okay. She says Macha is listening this morning. Gishuki John, like Kipia is on board this morning. Karibu Sana, good morning to you. Lindsay Lohana is tuned in and she says, good morning, guys. Somebody called Levi or Levi Dennis introduced you to the show and you're now a top fan. Well, top fan. Karibu Sana, tuned in from Mombasa this morning.
And well done, Levi Dennis. You're a good friend.
You're a good friend, Levi.
Yeah, Kenya needs people like you.
Jeffrey Mochama is tuning in from Kisumu Kibos this morning. Cyprian Moore tuning from Nakuru County. And he says, good morning, guys. How are you this fine Tuesday? Happy to be alive today? Absolutely. Waterman Jeffrey, good morning, folks. Tune in from Hennepin County. Well, good morning to you, and well, good evening, I guess it is on your side, in your neck of the woods. Stanley Kamigwi is tuned in from Dandora, and you say, well represented, absolutely. Gashere, good morning, tuned in from Thika Road. Good to see you this Tuesday morning. Jose Jays, good morning. Like your show. Happy to have you on board, sir. Nakuru is well represented, absolutely. Good morning, Spice team. Robert is tuned in from Mombasa. Kama Kawaida, that's where Joseph Hightower is saying this morning. Welcome, guys. Well, welcome to you too. Kisumu is watching. Karibu Sana, Billa Collins. And Kure Mlele, welcome. We're ready for today's talk. Tuned in from Eldoret. Jamali Nanjakululu is in. Karibu Sana. Welcome, situationers. Welcome to you too, Lucy Wakambo. Happy to have everybody in the room this morning. Karibu Sana.
Oh, very good. Asante sana, everybody, for tuning in. CT, today's proverb.
Right. He who earns calamity eats it with his family.
Why? Why? Sasa familia umeleta kwa history kwa nini? He who earns calamity eats it with his family.
Yes.
Okay. How do you earn calamity?
How do you invite problems? How do you foment problems?
How do you earn good things? Eat with your family. Also the bad you eat with them as well. Get it?
Of course I get it. Let's look at the headlines.
Okay. Curfew brutality is what is covered on The Nation today, and folks are saying, well, this pandemic pandemonium, rather. Chaotic scenes witnessed in the city on 2 consecutive nights are largely avoidable, but for overzealous police officers who blockaded entire roads and refused to let through essential workers, including the doctors, ambulance drivers, and security personnel. This covered on 6 and 7, still talking about what we talked about earlier. And it's, the thing is, what are we going to do about this situation? Folks are lining up for public transport well in advance of time, but are still getting stuck on the major roads where they have to make the connection. And they're saying that high-handed police are not helping matters. So here the police on one side are trying to do their job, as it would appear, but it seems that they're now literally taking the law into their own hands. So the police had blocked the entire outbound section of, and this is specifically Thika Road, including the service lane, creating a massive gridlock that extended more than a kilometer. Kasarani Divisional Police Boss Peter Nyaga instructed his juniors not to let anyone through and even unleashed officers on motorists who attempted to plead with him. They were all pushed back into their cars. Don't tell us how to do our job, is what he said, and asked him on. And they asked what would happen on Saturday should there be an emergency that required vehicle passage, or why he was not letting through those who had legal permits to be on the road at that hour. So things went a little bit crazy. And so what is being seen now is that the police are not helping the matter, and they're making things much worse by, being brute about the decisions that they're making and not letting anybody through, regardless of who you are. So the Public Order Act has even been quoted here and says, any person who contravenes any provisions of a curfew order shall be guilty of an offence and liable to a fine not exceeding 10,000 shillings or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 months. The police have seen themselves as enforcers of the law, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to make sure that the law is kept and abided by. However, this is turning into a little bit of a difficult situation.
This is... Okay, so if you look at the photo on right there, right, on the front page of The Nation, people queuing, and these are queues at Kencom, right? And
Yes.
these are many people queuing at Kencom trying to beat the curfew. Many leaving work early so they can try and beat the curfew. So you leave work, you go to the bus stop, you find there are no matatus. And why are there no matatus? Matatus are not there because they are stuck up in traffic somewhere on the road trying to get back. It brings in that issue of just exposing everything that is a problem in this country.
Public transport.
Yes, public transport on one hand, infrastructure. Well, infrastructure is being developed, so you can say, okay, yeah. But also, majorly for me, it's that strategic thinking. Coming up with a decision, and you're not thinking, so what are the likely bottlenecks here? Before you roll it out, can you just ask yourself, so what are the risks? What are the risks of this not being implemented fully or not being complied with? What would cause people not to comply?
Right.
If we say that 50% of people are not complying, then 50% are complying. Are the 50% that are complying actually managing to comply? And if you ask yourself, why are they not? This is why we are seeing people queuing, they want to go home, yes, but they have to use matatus to go home.
So it would appear
Even
that
those that are driving are stuck on the road. So there's also a story here that's being told by one of the reporters in The Nation on page 7. And he gives his own experience of having left the newsroom. This is Washington Gekunju. He says he left the newsroom on Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Nation Center, Kimathi Street, Nairobi. Was going towards Thika Road. Checked on Google Map. He told him, it's green, go. Gets to the Garden City Mall exit just before there, and he finds the roadblock. They stuck there. He got home at 12. No, he drove past that barrier at 12:21 a.m. having left town at 9:30 p.m. And what was happening there? He saw very many things happening there. So there are those cops that are saying the inner lane, just like the OCPD was saying, the inner lane is going to be used by emergency and those with the passes. But all the other motorists have come and blocked. So wherever you are, you cannot really access the inner lane because it's blocked. Now, police have to do the work of sifting and seeing how do we clear so that you can move into the inner lane. At some point, police had to come out and An officer dressed in an administration policeman's uniform came from the police van walking briskly and started issuing commands for motorists to give way to a hearse that was stuck about 50 meters back on the lane. Wacha huyu apite apeleke mwili ya mama yake marehemu kwa mochari. So somebody was transporting the body of their mother to a mortuary and they were stuck in this nalap in the middle of the night, and they were also now requesting to be allowed, please, let us just pass. Others, as he left Washington Gekunju at that point, he says he felt the guilt because there was a woman with a young child in a car behind him who was not being allowed to pass. And she had tried several times to plead the police officers, and they're just not listening to her. Just like they had not been listening to him until he just decided, let me show you my badge. Oh, nation, Peter.
Eric, have you ever been in traffic? Hear these, for lack of a better expression, let me call it a siren. And you look at your rear view mirror and you see these blue strobe lights going on and off. And when you look further, you realize it's more than one car. It is single lane, a single lane road.
Yeah.
And somehow they're hooting, there's a siren, and you dutifully move aside.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
And then there are these three cars. It's like one is a chase car, one is a clear the road car, the one in front, okay? And then the big shot, whoever it is in the middle car, we think.
Yeah.
And Kenyans actually move aside.
People move aside.
But that's not really what I want to talk about. Then there are these clever Kenyans who then follow these people.
Yes. Immediately.
Immediately. You'll find 5 or 6 cars behind them.
You put
Opportunity
hazards.
knocks but once.
You put hazards and you...
Yes, and they follow.
Especially
ambulance
if you are
escort.
also driving a 4-wheel drive car.
Yes, they follow, okay? I've seen the same thing happening with an ambulance. People give the ambulance way, and the ambulance passes. Immediately behind the ambulance is a matatu. And then other Kenyans are following. There is noticeably a certain degree, a high degree of indiscipline when it comes to our driving. We talk about matatu
Madness.
drivers. Nonsense. It's a Kenya driving madness. It's not matatus, it's us.
So like yesterday, clearly, or even on Saturday, it would have been possible for those ambulances to pass.
It would have
Yes, it
been possible.
would have
Thank-
been.
I think
Ambulances always pass.
you've gotten to where I was going with
Now
it.
look, ambulances are stuck. Hasangalia wa polisi.
But everybody has decided not to give anybody way and not to move. So even if the ambulance were to pass, what is the police supposed to do? Lift the cars up?
Command them to fly.
What on earth are they supposed to do? Now, they clearly state that there is a lane for
Emergency.
Emergency.
emergency. Yes. Then what do?
Go and block that.
We go and block it. And then the police, again, how?
It's their fault.
How?
Yeah.
The police commandeer all our cars and tell us where to drive and how to drive. They do not. They do not.
Bad manners of our own making. And now here we are, facing our own problems.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and look at this. And also look at this story in greater detail in coming hours. 6:30. So, have you logged on to this portal? This is the Generation Next Challenge. The children are at home from kindergarten through to 11th grade. They need to acquire a deeper understanding of math, computer science, robotics, sharpening their computational skills, nurturing creative abilities to connect math and real life. So if you just go to generationnextchallenge.com, you can register your child, and then your child will basically be busy logging onto this portal. They challenge themselves, benchmarking themselves with other children from across the country. If they win badges, those badges can give them some scholarships also to participate in boot camps with other children from around the world. Very good thing to do with your children, especially now when they're at home. Let's take a look at traffic. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a milli. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN. The realest and craziest couple are now on your screens. Terrence and Chebi are bringing you top celebrities and trendsetters on Thursday Night Live. It's double the fun and double the laughter every Thursday at 10 p.m. on KTN Home.
Traffic.
Okay, so the lorry has been cleared off Thika Road, and that was about midnight last night. Still affecting, still a bit of a mess in some parts of Thika Road, and so guys are wondering how we're going to get through this one. It should be cleared out in a short while from what we've been told. Okay, so those on Mombasa Road, you can branch off at Cabanas and join the Southern or Eastern bypass, and it's a lot quicker in exiting and then slowing down of your movement out this morning. All right, the train departs from Nairobi from Kitengela at 6:02 exactly. It's a good alternative to the massive traffic jam on Mombasa Road. It's looking like it's already built up quite some at 6:30 this morning, bumper to bumper all the way from SGR and even further ahead from the Weybridge at Milolongo. So this one you need to watch out for, nay? Looking at Thika Road, already piling up as well, in and outbound. Outbound, we don't understand why just yet, but we'll have a look at that in a bit. Industrial area, coming out to Jogo Road, also slowing down considerably. Let's look at how it opens up in about half hour or so. But for now, it looks that everywhere in the city is waking up. We'll take a look around other parts of the country in a bit. Talk to us as well. Should you need to run into something or find a good route, let us know. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127. It's Tuesday. Let's see how we can keep things moving.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, 25 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's look at other headlines in the papers. So apparently there is a standoff between the Senate and the National Assembly over the BBI report. So BBI, the Constitution Amendment Bill, was taken to Parliament as is required by law. It was now to be discussed by Parliament, and a joint team was set up. The Joint Parliamentary Committees on Legal Affairs of the National Assembly and the Senate have been sitting to look at this bill. Now, the issue emerges here. There are those that say that Parliament really cannot be a rubber stamp. There are those that read the law and they look at the law in terms of the letter of the law. And the letter of the law says Parliament will look at this thing, will vote for it. If a majority pass it, then it goes to a referendum. If a majority don't pass it, it goes to a referendum. There's nowhere where it says that Parliament can amend the bill, that Parliament has any role to open this bill. All right? But there are some senators and members of Parliament who are saying, look, come on. There's absolutely no way that Parliament can just be sitting here as a rubber stamp to this particular process.
Pause. Parliament cannot do what again? Repeat
Cannot
that.
just be a rubber stamp.
Really?
We represent the people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Parliament are now saying that they cannot be what they've always been.
Yeah, no, not in all cases. There's some
Really?
cases where, we can be a rubber stamp, but at least weka wino kidogo, you know?
Essentially, allow us to decide how we are going to rubber stamp.
Yes.
You just can't
Talk to us
You can't
nicely.
just rubber stamp for us.
Talk to us nicely so that we
no.
rubber stamp this thing. That's the thing, as it always has been. So anyway, those who are arguing about that include Senate Minority Leader James Orengo and also a MP who was sitting in the Committee of Experts on Constitution Review. And this is Rarieda MP, what's his name?
Otiende Amolo.
Otiende Amolo. Those are some of the leaders who are saying, our reading of the law says Parliament, we can actually do something about it. And then there are those that are saying we cannot even touch a comma, not even a comma. So, because of this kind of standoff, this story says that members of the committee in the Senate are threatening to do their own report, and then those in the National Assembly are threatening to do their own report.
Why don't they?
Kitaumana.
Why don't they just threaten? Why don't they just do their own report?
Just do the worst.
Yes. And frankly, do I really want to know whether they're threatening each other or do the report, then let us see
Then
where
let's
the
see what will
chips
happen
fall
after.
exactly. Shouldn't they be concerning themselves with the debate of what is happening during these COVID times
Surely.
and the issues that are pertinent to these people they seem to represent?
It will appear you're just revving your engine and there's no fuel in your tank.
Comma,
do it now.
apostrophe, question mark. Look, write your report. Do your
your
report.
job.
Yes, just write it. Then let's see what happens. And then rubber stamp it at the end of it.
Which we know you're going to do anyway.
On the other hand, page 4 of The Nation says Raila moves to end party row over BBI. So the ODM leader plans to meet with rival party factions that have clashed on whether the parliament can amend this bill to change the constitution. The former PM's legal advisor and BBI Secretariat Joint Secretary Paul Mwangi has insisted that Parliament has no right to reopen the BBI bill as it will render the process illegal with the risk of it being thrown out by the courts. He says, I've personally advised Mr. Odinga as his legal advisor that if he allows the reopening of the document, that will be the end of BBI. Parliament has to come to terms with the fact that its role here is not final. It's the people who will have a final say on the document. But other party bigwigs like James Orengo and Otiende Amolo see a possibility of the House opening up the document. They insist that Parliament is not a rubber stamp.
Okay.
So now
can
it's
insist all
basically
they
coming
want.
back to Raila now to come. Guys, it's okay.
Eric, is this really what is going on?
Something else is going on. There's no way you can tell me that Otiende Amolo sat in the committee of experts that drafted the constitution. James Orengo was very instrumental in writing this constitution, and they don't know.
They know.
The reason why Parliament was not given any leeway in a popular initiative to amend the constitution.
Surely.
It's because the popular initiative starts with the people, ends with the people.
Yes.
And everybody else in between is just a rubber stamp.
Or they are
Period.
part of the citizenry. Yes. So, this issue of, look, we are important, we know we're important, and we insist on being important. Okay?
That's the problem.
Yes. Why don't they be important on important things?
Like you're saying, CT, this is not necessarily an ego thing. There's something else.
Yes.
Something else at play here. There's a negotiation being opened or being forced.
Yes. But you see, this is what I find a little unpalatable. Huh? In the midst of real issues in this country, do we really need to be engaged in this sort of nonsensical drama?
That really doesn't
In all
matter.
honesty.
That doesn't matter.
We've gone through these processes. We are waiting for a date on the referendum. Okay, we are waiting for the IEBC to be disbanded. Serious things. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, why is it that suddenly these people want to engage us in this discussion of their relevance and telling us things that are a done and known thing? We want a rubber stamp. Really? Really? Really?
But then this also raises the question. So why go through this whole process? Why take this thing to Parliament? For what reason? For what purpose?
They're not going to be able to do anything to it anyway.
Let's actually just come from the 47 county assemblies looking at the bill
And go direct
and
to
just
referendum.
go straight to the referendum. This step of Parliament,
It doesn't matter whatever they say or do. It really doesn't matter whether they rubber stamp it or not. It's still going to go through. That's what you're doing essentially.
There's a dance that the executive seems to have with our Parliament, and I think there is a remix that we are seeing here. Same dance, okay? Because you don't want Parliament to appear to be completely toothless, even if we know they are toothless, right?
Even if they know they're toothless.
Of course they are toothless. How is it that all these things we keep talking about happened under their watch? How did it suddenly happen that you suddenly get surprised? My goodness, you mean this thing was passed into law?
So it would appear as
how
though
on earth did this arrive here? Now, this Parliament that wants to be considering all these things, All these things which were before them and their purview and things that they could have done something about.
They didn't do.
All these issues that IMF are now raising, Parliament could have raised the same.
Yeah.
Exactly. All these things, Parliament could have raised them,
Yep.
and Parliament could have insisted. They did not. So it took Big Brother to come and tell us to fall in line and go to nursery school and drink our milk quietly and behave like the children we are.
Yes. It would
I'm
appear.
not sure you have a handkerchief pinned on you.
Yes. So now you abrogate a role that was yours, the power that was yours, and then now you want to sort of like entertain us.
It even gets worse. You hear the members of parliament speaking in the floor of parliament and complaining about how powerless they are.
To who? Who are they telling? Each other.
How they are wondering how
How can we?
the executive could have passed something like this.
And you're
How
wondering,
the executive
doesn't
launched a
pass
project
things. It's
this
you who
expensive.
passes things.
How they're wondering how we can summon people and they just don't come.
They're
We have
wondering
become-
how.
They're wondering.
It's okay.
Members of parliament with all the powers. It's unfortunate.
Okay, well, I don't know. We don't know. Okay.
You know we are powerless. You know, even if you do this thing, then some people are going to be called, and then this thing will pass, and then now this thing you see like we tried very much with the revenue allocation.
But still even that.
and it's still even that. You see what happened. You see people are arrested. Oh, but you see now we can.
And then
do
sometimes
you want to
also,
be
it's
arrested?
a party position.
Yeah.
So, we don't really have a say. What do you mean you don't actually have a say?
So get out.
So now you suddenly want a say. When you abrogated that say, God knows how long ago, suddenly on an issue where your say is not required, you want to have a say.
Yeah. It's 7:15. Time for another break. We come down and look at other headlines shortly. Good morning.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal health care is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, 7:15.
I did it. Send me to jail. That's what Kiambu man tells court in murder case. So this one that you had highlighted yesterday, Eric, the gentleman who is said to have confessed to killing his girlfriend over a domestic issue that they had. A man who allegedly confessed to killing his estranged girlfriend seemed resigned to his fate yesterday when he pleaded with a thicker court to find him guilty and sentence him right away. So he begged them, please, I'm guilty, no need for a long, strung out thing. Send me to jail now. Evans Karani, the main suspect in the murder of Catherine Nyokavi, urged a senior resident magistrate, Oscar Wanyaga, to send him to prison. I'm asking you to make your ruling now so that I can start my jail term early. The prosecution asked the court for permission to detain Mr. Karani pending the conclusion of investigations and a medical assessment test to determine his fitness to stand trial. The court allowed the police to detain the suspect at Juja Police Station for 14 more days. The investigation officer, Mr. Jairus Mbondo, told the court that they were yet to conduct a post-mortem on Nyokavi's body. They also intend to record statements from crucial witnesses and compile a file that will be forwarded to the Director of Public Prosecutions for perusal and advice. Releasing the suspect may interfere with their investigations, Mr. Mbondo said. But this is interesting with all this having done. They're insisting on an investigation. And here's this man saying, you know what? I did it. I'm guilty. It was me. Here is exactly how it happened. And rule on this thing and send me to jail now.
Oh, yeah.
But it would appear as though the law still needs to run its course.
Of course, the first thing that he has to go through psychiatric evaluation and all those things, whether he can actually now stand trial, whether his guilty plea can be taken and be considered. There's another story on page 6 of the Standard today, And it says a carpenter suspected to have killed a 32-year-old woman in Naivasha has surrendered to the police. Investigators said yesterday that the 22-year-old man, who had been on the run for the past 4 days, confessed to killing Beth Mwehaki, a mother of two. Authorities said a postmortem conducted on the deceased showed that she was strangled using a piece of cloth. Police also established that a note demanding 2 million shillings from the victim's family was authored by the suspect with a view of throwing them off track. So investigators are right there working on something, and then the man comes and says, "Okay, guys, you're looking for me. Here I am. Yes, and I confess, I did this thing."
But you know what is interesting?
Well, this particular one has not confessed. He basically only surrendered.
Yes, but you know the thing that I find a little concerning, all these cases that we see in our media, the people who seem to be getting the short end of this particular stick are women.
Yeah.
The focus, it's even yesterday's papers, if you look across, there was some lady who was killed in Wasinkishu. It's women being killed, women being targeted. Whatever the reason is, it is the women who end up dying.
Yeah.
It's quite sad.
And then some people want to pout and tell us that they were not included and they want to be included.
No, they have powers. They cannot be rubber stamps. Blah 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 blah.
Okay.
City business.
Hey, okay. State delists overstayed varsity students saves 2 billion shillings. More than 12,000 students who failed to finish their courses within the stipulated time in the public universities have lost state funding in a move that will save the taxpayers 2.2 billion Kenya shillings. The University Funding Board, UFB, said the affected students will now have to foot their own tuition fees should their respective institutions allow them to carry out with their studies. The government currently pays up to 80% of tuition fees for students it sponsors in public universities.
Wow. So what does that mean?
What it means
so
is...
you started a course.
Yes.
And for whatever reason you have not finished.
Didn't finish it.
And whatever reason is not being discussed.
So then you're deregistered.
We're just saying deregister these persons.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to ask. So do we know what reasons are causing people? Why would you start and not finish? There are very many reasons why that would lead to that.
There are a lot of reasons.
Some of them could be action by the Senate itself, yes, to suspend you. Others could be.
You see, this particular report simply talks about students, right? But I'm really looking, and hoping that they'd categorize it and say students who are undergraduates, people who are doing postgraduate work, because for each of these groupings, there would be reasons perhaps why someone does not or is unable to continue with their learning.
Yeah.
All right? Now, those reasons aren't given, okay? They're just talking about the expiration of the studentship. Now, I know for a fact that many people who get scholarships to do their masters get problems completing courses for one reason or the other, and usually it isn't a problem that is caused by them. There is a schedule by which that particular course of studying should actually end. But if, for instance, you hand in whatever it is you're supposed to hand in, it is not marked in time. The people who are supposed to supervise and take it to the next level don't take it. Or there's one delay after another, which is beyond your control. What are you expected to do? One of the reasons that you hear many students giving is that they have a problem even finding their supervisors.
It's true.
Meaning, you know the person, you have the number.
You know their office and such.
You can't find them.
You'll never be able to get a hold of them.
You can't find them.
Okay. So you're out for some time because of that. There are many reasons as to why these folks are not finishing their degree course.
Alongside this decision that they have made, there should be an understanding of why it is that this number of students, 12,000 is a big number.
It is.
Why this number of students are unable to continue their learning.
And on this particular auction, it's Malawi, Tanzania, Burundi, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, DR Congo, Madagascar, and Mozambique. According to IATA Managing Director Edward Mudibo, no auction today. That's what he was saying yesterday. We are trying to set up systems because the detectives took away all our computers, laptops, and mobile phones. He warned that the disruption had sparked a backlash from the 9 countries that trade through Mombasa, adding that it could fuel a push to set up alternative auction in a different country. Tanzania tea traders have been pushing for the establishment of a rival auction in Dar es Salaam. We have to get alternative gadgets and the service providers to set up the system before we resume, hopefully Tuesday or Wednesday. Today is Tuesday, tomorrow is Wednesday. Are they going to be able to resume? Let's wait and see. Nearly 70 buyers and 13 brokers participate in the auction that's conducted twice a week. The buyers are from Europe, the UK, the Far East, Asia, African countries like Egypt. On average, tea worth 2 billion shillings is sold through this auction.
What really is the issue here?
This whole push for reforms in the tea sector, remember? The president ordering reforms, the minister coming up with regulations, the Senate passing regulations, the president ordering elections at KTDA, courts blocking those elections, investigations happening at the same time. Now, DCI officers go to the tea auction in Mombasa. There's a whole chain that's interconnected.
How is the tea auction suddenly at the center of this thing?
That's where the money is made. All those things that we talk about, KTDA, farmers, smallholder farmers, tea factories, tea factories own KTDA, So where is the money made?
Who is likely to benefit from what we are now talking about?
From this chaos,
yes,
even if it's 2 days.
Because essentially, an entire industry is being brought to its knees.
And even DCI officers wouldn't be that stupid to go and basically, why are you raiding a place and confiscating even the main server? It's possible for you to conduct investigations without necessarily having to go and collect the server and take it to your DCI office.
This was targeted. Specific. This wasn't just investigation. This was grind this thing to a halt.
Yeah.
Main server. Especially when this particular industry took the time it did to actually become connected and become modern and goodness gracious me.
To become what it is, and hear how many countries it's serving in the region, and the risk this kind of games portend.
People will not want to do business with you.
All the tea that's grown in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Uganda, in Tanzania, it's sold through that particular
and
auction.
People who want to buy those teas, whether they're from Pakistan, whether they're from Egypt, whether they're from wherever, second largest on the planet.
Yes. It's like saying DCI officers raided because they're conducting investigations at KPA. They went and raided all the equipment at KPA. So now the port
is not going to function.
Yeah.
How would that work?
You can't guide any ship to come and you can't do anything.
Actually, now that you mention it, remember the time when the DCI officers raided KRA? Now, what if they're taking the main server at KRA? To investigate.
Would have been nice, huh?
Wouldn't it?
Would have been very interesting.
Would have been
you
nice.
like that, eh?
Well, I'm simply thinking because this trend of following, beginning and continuing the investigation, then you take a server, you've crippled the organization. Well, you can get another server, but...
because within the server lies the truth.
Final story before we go to the top of the hour.
Probe has been launched into thousands who fell victim to Mara Jobs racket. And apparently somebody tried to be very intelligent and basically tried to sell job vacancies to quite a number of people. It was not to be. Fraudsters purporting to be the managers of a non-existent Amara Crescent resort minted millions in facilitation fees from jobless youth. Some of the victims, who had travelled from as far as Mombasa, Nairobi and Kisumu, were over the weekend left stranded at Masai Mara's Sekenani Gate after learning that they had been conned. The park's deputy senior warden, Mr. Eddie Nkotoi, said that the job seekers turned up with employment letters on only to have their hopes crushed. Police in Narok have launched investigations into the scam. 2,740 is what each individual was being asked to provide to pay for a medical certificate. And then they turned up and there was no resort and no job. Investigations.
So it's a fake resort.
It's a fake resort fake job application, fake job vacancy. It's a fake everything. But I think it's also shedding light on the
This
desperation
happens
of
quite a
very
bit.
many people.
Yeah.
So desperate that you're going to go beg, borrow, even steal 2,400 shillings.
You know, now that you speak
for
like
a job
I
that
got
doesn't
a
exist.
strange SMS the other day.
You got a strange SMS. I've been getting strange emails from
Emails.
people who want to offer me jobs.
Yeah, me too.
Many.
And then you just pay 24/7.
From an organization calling itself Lion Cash. Send me an SMS on Saturday. Your job application has been approved and your salary is 5,000 shillings per day.
Wow.
I got
And
that
then
one
they put
also.
a link. I did not, of course, click the link.
Don't ever click the link.
Your job application has been approved. Your salary is 5,000 bob a day. No, let me click this link, by the way. I'll click the link.
Yeah, well, let's just
And
wait for
then-
the
and
boom.
then- no, by all means, click it. And when that virus is introduced to you,
That's what I said. We wait for the boom.
Really click a link.
No, his phone is one of those phones
Nikipata kazi.
that are virus proof.
Nikipata kazi.
Cannot
Nyinyi
enter.
ni wivu.
Okay.
By the way, before we go into this thing, let me just mention this thing.
Let's do that after we come out of this
Please.
break, right?
Yes.
This thing, and then you mention the thing. Let's look at the thing that's happening on the roads this morning. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the next hour, we will be speaking with economist and former Senator Bill Okero. Big win for small businesses. What does that mean? And this is with regards to what Justice Odunga ruled yesterday. Good morning. We'll also be live on KTN Home, in addition to being live online. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, it's on the service lanes that you're going to find some reprieve this morning on Thika Road. Sticking to the main highway might be a little bit difficult. It's going to take some time to get out of this one. Getting to the Pangani underpass, and this is from Kiambu Road. This is also from the main highway, coming from the Utali Drift out in that direction. It's slowing down some as you're trying to get then into the city. So Thika Road, this one this morning is already jam-packed. Is Mombasa Road? Absolutely. All the way from the Weybridge at Mlolongo this morning and until General Motors, it slows down considerably. We're looking at this opening up around 9:30, 10. So for now, you're going to have to stick to it. Bagavi Way from Langata Road is your friend today. And that's the way to get you into the city faster. Yeah, that's what it looks like, stuck in some places. Right, industrial area also. Lunga Lunga, Likoni, the interchange. And then coming out and connecting with the southern bypass. It slows down some as well. But the bypasses today also are your friends. Use them. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us and tell us where you could get a good alternative. Text us as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room,
2.5
the
minutes after
only
7.
way to
Kenya's
start your
business
day.
Conversation continues, and we thank you very much for tuning in. This is the second hour of the show. We'll be here until 10 a.m. and we want to say good morning to you who are tuned in now on KTN Home. You'll be with us until 9. CT, today's proverb, and then tell us about the team.
Yes. He who earns calamity eats it with his family.
He who earns calamity
Yes.
eats it with his family. Wow. Yep, that's the truth, though. It's the truth. Hi, there was something that you've said.
Well, I think it's something positive that I felt I should actually just mention. You see, amidst all this COVID, as we say in Kenya, manenos, and issues that seem to really want to swamp us, something positive has been happening in Kenya for the last 5 years. Japan and the firms that are associated with that country for 5 consecutive years have actually chosen Kenya to make new investments. And of course, this it has done against a backdrop of avoiding countries, well, I'm using the word avoiding, in preference to countries like South Africa and Nigeria that are considered giants in this particular continent. Now, this is according to a survey that was commissioned by the Japan External Trade Organization. And what it shows is that we are talking about from 2016, when there were only 52 Japanese companies trading in Kenya, to 2020, they're now 89. I thought I would just mention this. So Kenya is not some deadbeat country that nobody wants to come to. Yesterday we reported how European tourists are still flocking to Kenya. And now we're saying 5 years consecutively, Japanese businesses have preferred Kenya to other destinations on this continent.
And that's actually been a good thing.
It's a very, very good thing.
Remember, just the other day, we were having conversations with universities in Japan, which are also seeking to get more and more Kenyans to go and study and work and live in Japan. Now, if you see more and more Japanese companies coming to set shop here, it means that there are opportunities for even those Kenyans who go to study in Japan to come back here and work for those organizations.
Yes,
and remember what we were being told by the lady that we were speaking to. And she was saying, you can come to Japan, study in Japan, get some industrial internship in these companies, and then they can even send you back to your country at senior level.
Yes.
Big things.
Positive thing, isn't it?
Oh, that's... Hii Kenya yetu ni mzuri bana. Ni vile tu yani...
Yes.
We have it's a 4-bedroom house. And the pale kwa guest room, kuna shetani. Guest room pale. Shetani. A positive thing happened yesterday. The High Court stopped the Kenya Revenue Authority from collecting minimum tax pending the hearing and determination of a case challenging its legality. Positive things. Left, right, and center.
I tell you, it's great.
This came following a constitutional petition filed by the Kitengela Bar Owners Association that seeks to scrap the 1% levy on gross turnover introduced last year. This is what Justice George Odunga said. I grant conservatory orders restraining the second respondent, whether acting jointly or by itself, its servants, agents, representatives of howsoever, otherwise from the implementation of this particular law. The minimum tax was introduced through the Finance Act 2020, came into effect this year in January, with KRA saying it was eyeing businesses that continually declare losses in their returns and do not pay taxes, but have been operational over the years. So this was the argument that they had, KRA. There are companies that at the end of every year, they are declaring losses, which means that they're not going to pay income tax, but they're still operational. And KRA was saying, okay, so this is not something that we are basically introducing. We are copying what has happened elsewhere in the world. So now we want companies to be paying a minimum tax, and this you pay quarterly, just like is required of the income tax. So every quarter, look, which is higher? Is it your minimum tax, or is it your income tax that you want to pay in advance? The one that's higher, pay. But the impact of introducing this minimum tax was huge, and especially manufacturers and many businesses were complaining. Now, you talk about minimum tax, it's actually now eating into our margins, and number one, it's also eating into our operational cash. Yesterday, former Senator Bill Okero had authored an article that was published in The Standard, and he said this tax frenzy can end if the state will slash expenses. And what the senator was arguing was that, all right, so there's a way you're looking at very many things that you're saying. Excise duty on many other products and services, including your bank and mobile money transactions, all the taxes that you end up paying, so many. And he ended up by saying it's unfortunate that the government is obsessed with maximizing tax revenues rather than rationalizing its expenditures. We cannot breathe because of a tax-obsessed administration content with living beyond its means. This is something that Bill Okero has written about before.
Repeatedly.
He has repeatedly spoken about this. This is something that other economists have actually also talked about. What is the government doing to manage its own costs? As you talk about, yes, seeking to raise revenues, as you talk about having a growing deficit in your budget, what are you doing about managing your own costs? And now this question now comes back again. But yesterday, Bill Okero wrote this, and it was at the same time he was saying, as we talk about, as you're reading this today, Justice George Odunga is considering this. So he just gave conservatory orders yesterday, but maybe a lot more could happen. The former senator joins us now on the line. He is with us. Good morning, Senator Bill Okero.
Morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Yeah, glad to be in the Situation Room.
And as we start off the conversation, we just want to, of course, continue wishing our Muslim brothers and sisters, including yourself, Ramadan Kareem.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Senator, you understand this matter very well. Let's first of all start by giving a summary of the article that you wrote yesterday, the kind of taxes that an ordinary Kenyan business has to contend with on a monthly basis, on an annual basis.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We have a very complicated, structure of taxes in this country. In fact, one of the most complicated. If you look at the Income Tax Act, a huge volume, of hundreds of pages, you will have difficulty going through, and it's very difficult even for experts, the tax consultants, sometimes to try and address your tax issues. And this is because the government has been introducing one tax, system or item after another, and the whole concept of tax really, globally, is to make it simplified and to make it easy for people who are paying taxpayers to comply. This is why you find in this country default on tax is fairly common, and the penalties for default also very high. Now, businesses, as you know, government generates revenue mainly from businesses or taxpayers, and taxpayers come in forms of individuals or in forms of corporations. And if you look at any country in this world today, businesses, the reason why every country is obsessed with investment or with improving their business environment is that businesses employ people, and businesses are the ones that generate most of the taxes. A typical business you find in this country pays several types of taxes or generates several types of revenues for government. One is the typical one that we know of, pay as you earn.
Yep.
You have employees, they earn salary, and on that salary you get taxes that are paid, income taxes that are paid, to the government from the employee's income. Then you have the goods and services that you sell. These goods and services attract VAT. So these businesses are also paying substantial amounts they collect VAT on all those goods and services that they sell, and they pay the VAT to the government. Those two are some of the two major sources of revenue for the government. Now, a typical business also uses raw materials. Those raw materials, if they are imported, often have got duty, customs duty and VAT when they come in. Or if they are produced locally, they probably have excise duties and so forth. So you're also paying duty at that point. Then at the end of the day, when you have done your business, you have done your trade, you have earned some income, you make some profit. So from your income, you deduct your expenses and you pay corporation tax, which is another, the main tax that is paid, for example, by most of the limited companies. So on that corporation tax that you pay, the net profit that remains again, when you are paying to your shareholders profit, you again deduct withholding tax on dividend.
Yes.
So there's a whole, lot of taxes and revenues that are generated by businesses. And so one of the fundamental things in the charter of any tax authority, including Kenya Revenue Authority, is not to focus only on regulatory aspect, but also to facilitate business, because that is where their money comes from. So in this country, we have a situation where the government has maximized revenue. I mean, it has looked for every opportunity to tax. The reason is because our expenditures have continuously increased. If today KRA, which is generating about 1.8 trillion shillings a year, was to double the revenue collection next year to 3 trillion, but this government, our government, what we have seen, would probably raise its expenditure to double that again. So the pressure to maximize revenue will always be there because of the challenges on spending side.
Yeah.
We've never had a problem really because we generate the largest amount of revenue in the whole of East Africa. In fact, KRA generates probably more revenue than all the other East African countries combined. Something in the range of over $25 billion. Not a small amount of money that KRA collects, but that is hardly enough. So that is the challenge that we have. So it's the businesses incur a lot of this, but so some of them become really taxes that are punitive. And an example is this 1% minimum tax that we have seen. It's punitive because, number one, it's not based on income. The fundamental principle of tax is that it's based on income. For example, me and you, if we are not earning a salary, we cannot just pay tax.
Yeah.
We must be having some income. The same way with a business, if it is not having a net income, if it's not earning any revenue, which means the turnover less its expenditure, because they have expenditures for operations, their productional expenses, and so forth. So the net income is what is taxed, and this is clearly spelled out in the Income Tax Act. But the amendment to minimum tax simply says every company or every business must pay 1% on its revenue. So that is a challenge. If your company made a 1,000 shillings revenue, but made 100 shillings profit, the 1% that you're going to pay is 100 shillings, and you have made 100 shillings profit, but you're also paying 100. It doesn't make sense. So what we have been saying is that, look, this is really not necessary. If the government wants to address perennial loss makers or companies that are evading taxes, there are mechanisms in the income tax for addressing that. And KRA is there essentially for that purpose, to address those companies and ensure that businesses pay taxes or individuals pay taxes on their income. And there is a whole lot of a process for that. You obtain audited accounts, you examine those accounts, they don't rely on the self-assessment, they do audits, and to check the accuracy of the income and so forth. So it's not as if KRA does not have the tools to pursue those who are making perennial losses. But this minimum tax is actually not about loss makers. If you see what I've said in my article, the largest loss maker in this country is Kenya Airways.
Yep.
It's made hundreds of billions of losses, and they have been exempted expressly by law last week. So what they are targeting is simply to raise revenue on turnover. That's basically what they are doing, because even companies which are making profits and which have been paying tax, this thing affects them adversely, because what it says is 1% of turnover. So if that one is higher than the taxes that you have been paying, or the installment taxes that you pay every quarter, you'll still have to pay the higher one, which is the revenue. Yeah. So essentially, you're taxing capital. That's what you're doing, because if you are taking more money than what I have earned, basically you're eating into my capital. That's what's happening, and that is why businesses have found it very difficult and have decided to go to court.
Senator, people who understand economics like you do have always argued, and you've sort of like hinted at it, that perhaps if the focus of government was to generate more businesses, to ensure that you had a more vibrant economy, which of course by extension would mean there is more money circulating within the country, the issue of taxes would make a lot more sense if you balance it against this. Now, the question I want to ask is, what, in the circumstances that we find ourselves in, what are some of the things that the government could do to ensure that the business environment, that businesses are on the increase, that people who actually generate business and earn money can do more of the same?
You see, the governments all over the world, that is their primary concern, how to generate more revenues. And they do that by encouraging business. This is why the subject of creating a good business environment, or enhancing the ease of doing business, is a matter that every government is always concerned with. If you look at our budget every year, you can never miss those two terms. The government always saying that they're doing this measure or that measure or this policy or that one in order to enhance the ease of doing business, or creating a good business environment, so that the more business is coming, then the more revenue. Now, In our country, the challenges we have faced is that many businesses have collapsed because of course, COVID in the last 1 year. I'm sure that fact is well known to the government. But what government do is, for example, the fundamental things government do to encourage business, including investors, including foreign investors, by the way, is largely through the policy measures and tax. This is why if today you are a foreign investor from outside, there's a whole entity of government that deals with how you can bring your investment into the country. And there are incentives that are provided. And those incentives include, if, for example, you go to an export processing zone or you go to any of the others, you'll find there are so many incentives, mainly around the tax, that if you come into our country, you set up business, you invest this kind of money, we shall exempt you from this kind of tax, and so that you employ people, so that you export goods and services, and we get money coming into the country and so forth.
Yeah.
But locally, what the government has also been doing, and the government can do, is the same thing, by the way. They have provided for businesses incentives, what we call business incentives. And this includes, for example, for a company, if I am doing manufacturing and I invest in capital equipment like plant and machinery, industrial building, and so forth, there are capital allowances. There are allowances. For example, whatever I have spent in building the industrial, setup in my factory, I'm allowed to recoup that one first before I start paying taxes on it, because I will have borrowed that money, or wherever you get that money from, you need to, recoup that money before you start paying taxes. These are some of the allowances which last year were reduced significantly, by the way. And so many of these measures that were dealt with last year were that type of, incentives, tax remissions when you are importing certain amounts, types of foreign goods. For example, if I'm importing goods for the purpose of manufacturing, and those goods will be exported to a neighboring country, that raw material that I imported, when I pay customs duty on it, I'm supposed to get some sort of a remission, because ultimately I'm sending this thing for export, and the country is also going to earn revenue and so forth. So there are a lot of ways in which you encourage. Locally, you can say, for example, the small and medium-sized enterprises. These are institutions that the government can support. They have talked about guaranteeing some of the loans that these SMEs will take from banks. But one of the things that, for a long time I have talked about is that central bank can play a significant role, really. And this, unfortunately, central bank has ended up being, supporter of banks rather than a facilitator of the economy. What they can do is, if you want to be a bank and you want to be licensed in this country, if central bank and the government says, okay, fine, number one condition is you must give 30% of all your loans and advances to the small and medium-sized enterprise. That's our condition number one. If you can meet that requirement, welcome, please. You can apply for your license and we'll give you a license. You don't want to take risks, because business is all about risks. You cannot say, the largest, this is a subsistence economy. We are not a rich country like a developed country. 80% of our businesses are in the informal sector. Our land in Africa generally is not collateralized. So we cannot use most of our land for security and so forth. So we have a situation where you have millions of people setting up businesses every year, small and medium-sized enterprises, but they can't attract credit. And so what else the government can do, and which it's trying to do now, the 10 billion that they have said they're starting a credit, guarantee scheme for small and medium, but generally to put in substantial amounts of money to guarantee credits to small and medium enterprises. This happens in many countries, whether it is directly to agriculture kind of enterprises. If you want to encourage agriculture, specifically, that's why banks, by the way, like Agricultural Finance Corporation, some of these institutions in the old days, they were set up specifically for that kind of intervention, so that you can lend directly to specific sectors that you want the government to grow. The government can...
Just looking at just looking below at the operations of KRA, their job essentially is to collect on behalf of the government, is to collect tax. That's their job. Now, looking at more creative ways to then bring in revenue for the country. Obviously, if we look at businesses, if we look at Kenyans right now, we can easily say that people are being overtaxed. It's just too much, and there's very little more that you can get or milk from this particular cow. Can KRA be involved in the creative process of this if their job is just to collect? Can they be involved in ways how the government can make it easier on Kenyans and at the same time get that very much required revenue.
In the KRA charter, you will find that one of the tasks, one of the things it's tasked with, is not just regulatory, but it's to facilitate business. I mean, you want to collect revenue from me, so you must facilitate also my business. You must make it easy for me to do business. You must make it easy for me to pay taxes. It must be simplified. So that mandate is there. But by and large, it's a mandate that most of the time the Treasury is the one that plays that role, and they're the ones that come up with the tax measures and all these things when they do when they present their budget, the Treasury. But they do the consultations with Treasury. I mean, with KRA. KRA has the mandate really. And let me say this: when I say it's simplified, it means, for example, let me give you this example. One of the most common ways of taxing is what we call indirect taxes. These are taxes which, an example is VAT. VAT, I'm not taxed directly. It's not on my income. How much are you earning and how much profit am I making as a company, or what is my salary? It's not like pay as you earn on this one. So generally, a few years ago, I think this is about when 2003 or so, the government made a deliberate decision, and that was a policy decision, that we should enhance indirect taxes. In other words, focus more on indirect taxes and less on the direct one, because direct is more complicated to collect. Indirect is on VAT. So if instead of charging 1% on turnover, or many of these other taxes that you have seen the government introduce, on digital tax, on M-Pesa transactions, on you name it, every little thing that you do, there's one form of tax or the other. VAT at 16%, if you simply said, okay, we want to avoid all those indirect taxes, I'm charging 17%. It will be across the board to everyone who uses goods and services in this country, whether it's Kenya Airways or SGR or me or you or a farmer in Eldoret. Everyone will be affected equally, and everyone will be contributing. So then, because that is generally the form of taxes that makes it easy. And they did that, and this is why VAT went all the way to 16% when they started. But again, I think that I have to keep saying that the reason why the government has KRAs and the pressure to look for ways and means all the time is because of this insatiable appetite for funding by government. They raise 1.8 trillion, but the expenditure is going to be 3.3 or 3.6 or whatever. So you have this double. So they're under pressure always to look for
more.
So in that pressure now, you are looking for how to, hey, your shirt has not been taxed. Can we find a way of taxing that shirt? And look for every way. And that is what is making things more difficult. And so KRA, yes, they can be a bit more facilitative, and they can advise government. Really.
They can do a lot more. Senator, let's take a break at this point, and when we come back, let's now focus on what is it that we are talking about. Government controlling or even just curtailing its expenditure, being able to live within its means. What needs to happen? What is this living within the means of government that needs to happen? That's a conversation we'll be having when we come back out of this break. We're having a conversation with economist and former Senator Bill Okero on taxation and government expenditure. Where do you strike the balance? 26 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are live on KTN Home. We are live on SpiceFM. And we are live streaming the show online. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
We've been all through it, We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades, and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing, and interview coaching. Give your career the much-needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
You better be ready. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. only on KTN Home. It's the Shining Stars TV show moment. Get ready to be inspired.
Where the stash at? Cruise the city in a bulletproof Cadillac.
Get ready to be part of an exciting journey of discovery and learning with talented children.
Held me down, but I got up. Get ready, cause I had enough.
Get ready to be entertained by super amazing young talent. Because hii ni yetu. From our own talented stars, hosted by #1 TV host, Sleepy David. Shining Stars TV show, every Friday, 7:30 p.m. only on KTN Home. Be part of the journey.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Light rain in certain parts of Nairobi. We'll see lows of 17 today, highs of 24. Rain showers in Nyeri as well, 16 degrees, going to highs of 24. 27 will be the high recorded in Nakuru today. It's mostly cloudy at 15. 24 will be the high in Eldoret, mostly cloudy this morning at 16. It's 19 degrees and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 27 and lows of 20. 26 of high and low at 17 in Kakamega today. It's partly sunny at the moment. Sunny conditions in Mombasa today, highs of 32 and lows of 25. It's also going to be sunny in Malindi, highs of 31 and lows of 26. Rain showers in Kampala at 19, highs of 24 and lows of 20. And Dar es Salaam, light rain this morning. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 23. Clear conditions and cooling down in Johannesburg, 9 degrees, highs of 21 and lows of 10. And mostly clear in Lagos at 26, highs of 33, down to lows of 26. And 24 will be the low in Kinshasa, which is what it is currently, and cloudy. It'll go to highs of 29.
Spice up your life.
All right, so as the service lanes that are helping out folks on Thika Road this morning, out into the city centre, very slow on the main highway, connecting with Kiambu Road and also then joining at the Pangani underpass, taking some time to get out of this one. So traffic is back to normal on Thika Road. Your 2 weeks of reprieve have officially ended. Also coming out of Westlands. It's a bit slow, but it's all right. Using the Red Hill bypass, you can get into the city a lot faster than if you're going to stick to it. Remember that construction continues. It slows things down considerably all the way from Mombasa Road through to the city centre and then out towards Westlands. So watch out for that. Coming off of Langata Road, it's looking pretty good. You join the team all roundabouts, go towards Bagathi Way or go towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. You should be all right. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can talk to us. Let us know. Text us on 40127 what the traffic situation looks like in your area.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
KTN Home, Spice FM. We are live streaming the show. Each and every weekday morning in the studio with you is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, C.T. Muga, and we're joined on the line this time by economist and former Mandera Senator Bill Okero, looking at tax versus expenditure by government. Senator, you penned an article yesterday, and this is what we are focusing on today, where you're saying if the government had basically reined in on its own expenditure, then it would also be able to deal with the kind of revenue that it collects currently. Next financial year's budget, the indications are that the budget is going to be about 3 trillion shillings, and the National Treasury is saying that it hopes to collect 1.8 trillion shillings. First, will they be able to hit the 1.6 trillion shilling target for this year? Did they hit the target for last year? And what is it that makes them believe that they can hit 1.8 trillion shillings next year? But that is one question. The main question that I want to ask you is, what are these things that the government needs to do to cut its cloth so that it's able to basically deal with its own revenue collection?
Yeah, it's a good question, because that has been the question. And it's the elephant in the room, really. It's about expenditure. Yeah. It's not about the revenue. If you look at government, it's always talking about revenue, how to maximize revenue, how to raise revenue. But revenue has not been an issue. The issue really is how to live within your means. Now, KRA, the economy has not been very good. It's not been performing very well the last, couple of years, and so KRA has not been collecting 100% of its targets. But that does not mean it has really been doing very well over 90% most of the time. And the last 6 months, for instance, they have met their target, and in fact surpassed their target in the last 6 months. But that is not where the issue is, because even if they collect their target, if the target is 1.6, 1.8, and they collect it, and revenue and expenditures, as we said, this financial year is 3.3 trillion, that revenue is not going to be enough. So you have a deficit of about $1 trillion, 3.3 less 1.8. If they collect 1.8, they will still have a shortfall of 1.5 trillion. So what the government has been doing over the years, then to fill that gap, is to borrow. That gap is what we call in economics budget deficit. The expenditure, less the revenue, that deficit. And for a long time, if you look at the way our budgets used to be done in the past, let me tell you, specifically not just about this administration, but even before this administration, it used to be about balancing the budget. Budget is always about balancing revenue and expenditure, and avoiding a situation where you end up with a deficit. But the last 7 or 8 years, the issue is the deficits have grown to 8 or 9% or even more. And the government has always said, we are going to deal with the deficit. We are going to bring it down. Even this year, if you look at the budget policy statement now for this financial year coming next 2 or 3 months, they've always said that they are saying the same thing, that we're going to bring it down to 3%.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen. So what it means is that government needs to look at its expenditures. It looks at its operations, looks at its size, look at the ministries, look at the state corporations, look at its operational expenses in general, what we call the recurrent expenditure. And in general, what happens is that there are misplaced priorities in government. That has been always our challenge. That we have priorities. I raised another recently. For example, I saw a huge advert in parts of this city, advertising on how safe it is to use nuclear energy. And it was being advertised by our nuclear authority.
Yeah.
We have set up a state corporation to set up a nuclear authority. And you wonder then, fine, okay, you want to pursue nuclear, that's something else. But why would you want to spend, hundreds of thousands of millions advertising, how to use, and you don't even have it. And so when you go around in government, you find many instances of wastage of funds and inefficiencies, and that can really be so. That is the challenge in our government. There's no control. Ministries are allocated money, but you find money being spent on things that are really not necessary. And so we have a government that is running taxes. They have a taxi. They have this administration alone has set up over a dozen new state corporations in the last 7 years.
Who would be responsible? Who would necessitate to come out and look at these issues and say, all right, we need to mop up things here and there? Because if you looked on a private level, it would be very clear what somebody needed to do. You have an audit that's done, and then somebody comes in and starts to cut things here and there, and then it's necessary for you to streamline certain things. We know that expenditure is very huge at government level, and sometimes unnecessary expenditure. And then it's clearly eating into other operations that could be then towards development and other such things. Who would be responsible for doing this?
Now, there are two levels. One is at the level of the executive, the other one is at the level of parliament. Let me explain. At the level of executive, they need to look at what are the priorities. For example, and I've raised this many times, it's not the mandate of a government to tax its citizens the way they want in order to do the kind of development they want. No. It's for the people to decide, really, how much they want to pay. And they do this through Parliament. That is why the power to tax is specifically given to Parliament. It's not the executive. They can propose, but it goes to Parliament. But the executive have one role. They can say, look, let us shelve this project. this particular development, for example, you want to put up an SGR. How much is it going to cost? It's going to cost 400, 500 billion. Okay, that's expensive. We have more pressing challenges. We don't have water in our homes. We don't have medicines in our hospitals. And this and that. Let's shelve this one. But if they say, no, I want to do this because I want to have a legacy. I want to do this. I want to have, as a government, to continue to have done ABCD. I want to have this expressway. And you borrow money. That borrowing money, there's nothing called a loan. The money that you are borrowing is the taxpayers' money because you're the ones who are going to pay that loan, ultimately. So that, number one, is the buck stops with the executive because they can really rationalize their expenditures, creating all these institutions and all these expenditures. Number two is Parliament, which has the power to stop the executive from doing those things. They are the ones who are mandated to approve every budget. Nothing that the executive does can go without the approval of Parliament. Every shilling that they spend, every shilling, including every policy or development project or activity that they have to do, must get the approval of Parliament. And this is where, unfortunately, when the Parliament then becomes, a
rubber stamp.
What happens nowadays is instead of things have changed. Instead of Parliament becoming the oversight of the executive, it's the executive who now oversights Parliament. That's why you find, MPs are now the ones who are bringing someone every time, appear here and explain this and explain that, and so. But that is the mandate Parliament has. So if the institution was working, this is where now the checks and balances will be done.
Okay.
And government will be told, sorry, this expenditure is too much. You must stop this one.
Failure of the two institutions to do what they're supposed to be doing. Parliament not doing its oversight role properly, the executive not seeming to see that there's a problem. What then can happen? Who else can take up this action?
It's Odunga who can save us.
Senator, there's something I wanted to ask. If I look at what you're saying, and I look at taxes for what they actually are in essence, they have the power, two opposing powers, one to create and also one to destroy. And given the discussion that we're having, if we go by the article that you wrote, then essentially you're pointing out to, one, the negative powers that taxes have. Now, would you then say, for instance, that if we continue along this path, that the government, through its tax system, are actually abrogating certain fundamental rights that the citizens of this country have? Because with such taxes, if they're punitive, you can't create.
Let me put it in perspective. The KRA, Kenya Revenue Authority, is one of the most organized revenue administrations in Africa, by the way, and very efficient. They collect more revenue than I've said most of the countries in Africa. And actually, for example, if you look at the region, it's more than what all our countries in the region combined collect. They're very efficient. They, as an institution, I mean, they carry out their mandate more effectively than many in the region. And we need the taxes. We need to pay the taxes, and this is why this country, to a large extent, is more developed than the other countries in the region in terms of many institutions. Look at education, look at even infrastructure or manufacturing or many. It's because the government, has revenues that is collected by the taxpayer. So we pay taxes in order to develop our country. That one is essential, and no one is saying taxes must not be paid. And this is why I pointed out in my article the many taxes that Kenyans are paying, which I have no problem with. For example, the VAT, the pay-as-you-earn, the customs duty, and many of these other income taxes that people are paying. But what we are saying is that some of the taxes which have been introduced can be punitive because they kill businesses. An example is this 1% minimum tax. It can end up, because if you're already making a loss and you're being told you must pay, you have consistently made a loss, for example, in the last 3 months. Because of the situation we are in today, many companies are facing serious challenges because raw material costs have gone up. The cost of production in this country is high. Power is expensive, and so many things. So if you have made a loss and you're still told to pay tax, ultimately, and you have got a loan, you're financing, you have employees to pay, you have operations to pay for, you will come to a point where you'd say, no, sorry, I'm not able to run this business, and you close. And this is already happening. Some of the businesses are closing even without the 1%. You now ask them to pay 1% on revenue. And by the way, revenue turnover it's something that, me and revenue turnover it can be huge. But in most businesses, they get a 1% margin on turnover. They sell volumes, and the margin on them are very small before you even come to the expenses. So I think they are punitive when they create a situation where the businesses are likely to fail in terms of servicing their normal obligations, their other obligations, and therefore, because of tax, they're not able to run and they close. And that's the punitive aspect. And this is one of them where Kenya Association of Manufacturers and many other players in the business environment have said, look, and I think up to 18 associations dealing with businesses have signed, onto this thing when it was introduced last year, that is going to be punitive, it's going to kill businesses, and it's counterproductive. So there are these kind of taxes which really, are disincentive to business. So when it's the disincentive, we say that this is disincentive, it discourages people from investing. And then, for example, now the capital allowances that I mentioned earlier, I want to expand my business. I want to take 200-300 million loans from a bank to go and put up a new plant and machinery and so forth and so forth. I want government to help me in terms of, recouping my capital loans and my capital amount outlay from the business before I start paying. This is something that is there all over the world. It's normal. And it's been, in this case, the same also in this country. From time immemorial, businesses, that is how you start business. But when you remove all these allowances and everything and you say, no, we're just looking for money every which way you can, I think then it becomes a bit of a punitive. People get discouraged, in paying taxes.
With the action that we saw, for example, from the courts yesterday to stop this one tax, do you think that if we saw more action like this on the part of those who own businesses in this country, individuals across the board, do you think that it could encourage, I want to use the word encourage as opposed to force, do you think that it would encourage then more creative thinking by government to find out ways of funding and also to maybe say, let's look in another direction and how we can make things flow a lot easier when it comes to then resources? Do you think that if you saw more action by, individuals, by businesses to actually say, we're not just going to take this lying down anymore. We can pay what we ought to pay. But in terms of avoiding this punitive action by the exertion of more of these taxes, we're going to go and say, let this be stopped. Would it force government then to say, okay, hold on, we can't just continue doing things this way anymore. Let's think differently.
Yes, it ought to. It ought to. But from experience, this government has found a better way of looking for money. They borrow it. The moment you say 1% is not available and they have budgeted 100 billion to come from 1%, the following morning they'll just call up their friends and ask for a loan and they'll kick the can down the road and you'll have to pay it some day later. But I agree. I think two things the government can do. One that it has committed many times it's going to do, but I think it's still doing, but it's not probably adequate, is to deal with leakages in the revenue collection system. There are still out there many institutions or many individuals or many residents who are not paying taxes for one reason or the other, and they need to gradually tighten the noose on and this is done through the enforcement of compliance by KRA, and that they have a huge department that deals with that, and I think they have lately been working quite a lot in that area to enforce compliance. But again, compliance, as you know, or enforcement is something that is always undermined in this country by corruption. The second that they need to do is to expand the tax base. There are many other, Kenyans out there or activities or, out there that are still not within the tax bracket that they can bring in, into the tax bracket and, they expand the base so that it's not only a few. If you look at the number of people who are paying taxes in Kenya, you'll be surprised out of the 50 million Kenyans, the number would probably be around 2 million or so.
Senator,
sure
I have to interrupt you and ask, some of these sectors, because I don't know, that where people don't pay taxes, which are these? I mean, just for example.
Well,
the
I
direct
think
taxes, I'm sure.
No, This is a bit. Let me explain. It's a bit complicated. Our economy is largely subsistence economy. We are not having large. We're not dominated by Safaricom-sized businesses all over. So in this subsistence economy, what happens is that 80% of the businesses. If you walk into Nairobi CBD, you'll find in every building there are hundreds of offices and providing various types of services and various types of, whether it's accountants, doctors, lawyers, every kind of service provider that you can imagine, your garage, there are so many. Then you go all the way down into the rural areas. There's always an activity that is going on. There's ways in which, all the activities, all those businesses can be brought into the, without necessarily putting a very high taxes, but at least bringing them within to, expand broaden the base and bring in more people in, but at a smaller rate, people can pay taxes. And they have tried, by the way, when they introduced this turnover tax, not the minimum, but the turnover tax 1% for businesses, with income less than 50,000, 50 million, and so forth. So I think there are a lot of businesses, if you go into this country, that are small, but they are not all within the KRA's radar. And I think so every year, those are the measures they keep saying. You remember in the last couple of years, they have focused on rent, on those who own properties, and so forth. So I think there are. And then in addition is there's an area again that they have been saying they are going to focus on, but I don't think with a lot of success, what we call transfer pricing. If you look at most of the multinational companies, they avoid taxes in one way or the other. Through very sophisticated, and this is a global problem, but you'll find a multinational company here doing business, but the invoice is raised from their country, and the payments are done to an account in their country, and these things happen, all over, and so they are. They have, for example, for a long time, the real estate, which is one of the most profitable areas again in this country, was not within the tax or whatever. And I think a couple of years ago they introduced a capital gains tax, where now at least if you are selling properties and there is a profit on that investment that you are selling, you will be paying something on the profits that you are making on the sale of the asset. So I think there are areas where they can expand really, and there is room. And KRA itself is aware of this, and every year they're coming up with ways. But I say there are challenges. It's not only KRA but every institution faces in this country. With this. So some of those challenges make it difficult to enforce compliance across the board.
Paint a picture for us of what it would look like. I mean, we're talking about collecting largest amount of taxes in the region, countries combined, and we've talked about what is not working. Paint a picture for us in terms of what it could look like if things were running properly, because oftentimes if we picture how it should be, then it could probably spur us on to aspire at least to get it done right. So what would it look like? What would be operating properly if the taxes actually being collected are being used in a proper manner, and then you're able to at least keep expenditure to a manageable level, at least to a dull roar? What would it look like?
Now, okay. If every shilling that the taxpayer pays is spent well, then you would see the results of that in this country in terms of not just infrastructure, but in terms of the economic development of the country. When the shilling is not that you pay as a taxpayer does not go to the right area, or is not used rightly, then you'll find a situation like the one we are in, where we are paying taxes more than everyone else in the region. But again, you don't see an awful lot of difference between us and others in terms of the level of, for example, economic development. And lately we have seen, in fact, countries that in the past were all dependent on Kenya's manufacturing sector. Today, if you stand at Namanga, you'll find there are more trucks bringing in goods into Kenya from Tanzania than are going into Tanzania. Uganda, which is our largest trading partner, used to be our largest destination for exports. Today it exports more to Kenya than we export to Uganda, to the point where now literally everything, including even the basic foodstuffs, are cheaper when they come from those countries. And don't forget, all those countries import their raw materials. Some of these countries import their raw materials through Tanzania, through Mombasa. Now, coming back to your question, the issue is maximizing revenue. We're paying a lot of taxes. Why? Because of our expenditure. Why is our expenditure high? Our expenditure, for example, the 3.3 trillion this year, this financial year we are in, the government is going to spend 1 trillion to service loans. So then you say, okay, so actually out of the 3 trillion, we're going to spend 1 trillion, or rather 1.8 trillion that we are going to pay as taxpayers. 1 trillion is actually going to be used to service loans. Then you say, then what happened to those? What are those loans for? Then the questions come, how we use the money properly. That's always the question. It's about accountability. It's about spending. It's about priorities on those spending. So then it's a question that has been raised often by you in the media and everyone else. We take, say, $2 billion Eurobond loan. So the question is, where did that money go? Has it been spent? Has not been spent? It didn't go to infrastructure. It didn't go to infrastructure. Those are the questions. Assume it went to infrastructure. Then the next question again that always comes up in this country is it value for money? We put up, we spent 2 billion, 3 billion on an SGR. Did we get value for money? Could it have been cheaper? Could it have been done at half the cost? Those questions again come in. So ultimately then the situation is, we are paying taxes, yes, but we are not getting value for money. The taxes that we are paying are being spent in a manner that is, there's wastage, there's pilferage, there's stealing, there's all those things, so that you don't actually find that on the. So when you calculate how much money, for example, let me give you an example. Let's say, yes, let's take a pen and paper and start calculating where all those loans went. So you start looking at, for example, let me give you the simplest example of the dams. The government put up, 3-4 years ago, they said they're putting up dozens of dams worth 200 or 300 billion shillings. You go around the country, none of those dams is complete. Not a single one of them.
Yeah.
And each one of them is worth 20, 30, 40 billion shillings, and none of them is complete. So you go around the country, and this Parliamentary Budget Office always publishes these reports. There are projects worth 1.5, I think, trillion that have stalled in the last 7 or 8 years, and nobody's bothered about completing those. So we keep starting new ones because the new ones have other reasons for being. So I think it's not about. So the good situation would have been one where we are paying the tax, and the taxes are used, and the citizens can see the benefits, not just on infrastructure and services provided by government,
but
also
else.
opportunity. Like now when we have a COVID, they will also see people being supported. Small businesses being supported through grantees, on their loans or payment on their loans, or being supported, those who are not employed. For example, Labor Ministry last week, they said the people who lost jobs last year, about 1.7 million, and they said they have applied to Treasury out of this new IMF funding of 257. They have asked for money. They want that money to be, if it's given to some part of the money is given to them, they want to send or give to those people who have applied for jobs or who have lost their jobs in the last few months, and they know because they have the database, all those who have lost jobs in various businesses and companies, and they want to support those guys by giving them a monthly stipend. That kind of, so if our revenue was well spent, you will see all those people who are employed getting
Senator, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Senator, and for sharing all those insights with us. We hope to invite you again soon. We know that the judge yesterday, Justice Odunga, just gave conservatory orders pending the hearing of this particular case, but we hope that it also goes out and it ends up this way, even in the final ruling and final judgment. Senator, asante sana, and we wish you a good day.
Thank you very much.
Time for a break right here on KTN Home, SpiceFM. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Actually, get better if we had a leadership and a government that was basically there doing what it's supposed to be doing. If the 8 trillion shillings that has been borrowed had been utilized and put into proper use, we would be having a different conversation than the one we're having today.
I shudder just a little bit because 8 trillion shillings is not chicken change.
That is a lot.
It's a lot of money. And also thinking about the things that could have been done if that money had been used right. And I think that's the problem. There's a lot of money being spent and you can't see. There's a lot of money being collected. You can't see the results. Maybe, you can see.
Actually, we can see the results.
And then somebody
There's
gives
a development in the real estate sector.
Okay, and yes, we know there was an
huge
SGR.
development that defies all logic.
Things that were built and then you can't see them with the human eye.
Yes.
You can't see them with the human eye, but they're there.
And you're talking about the yards being in high-end real estate areas, and you're wondering, surely.
Yeah. You have this thing here, and you look at the number of vehicles on that particular yard, and you're wondering, this is easily 100 million shillings.
It gives me
just sitting here.
palpitations, actually.
Anyway, let's take a look at traffic, and then we talk about this. Good morning, it's 8 a.m.
Your life. 102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu.
Okay, so there seems to be some heavy police presence around Babadoko area. Exit as you join Outer Ring. So let's keep an eye on that in terms of what's going on, guys. But we ask that you please be careful, whatever the case may be. Visibility is poor coming out of Kikuyu and also certain parts high up on Mombasa Road. So please be careful. The rain's also coming down in certain areas. So take it easy, shall we? Coming off of Langata Road as you get to the Timor roundabout, Bagathi Way seems to be the way that's moving a lot quicker this morning. If you're going to join Aerodrome Road coming from Langata Road, be ready to stay there for some time as you try to then join Uhuru Highway into the city centre. That's taking some time, so just note that. Kiambu Road jam-packed, joining the Thika Super Highway also at the Pangani Underpass. As you then decide to take Wangari Maathai Road or then you go towards Ngara, it's up to you. But it's moving slowly. Jogo Road to Landis, into the CBD, also quite slow. The bypasses behaving beautifully well this morning. You can use those as options. The Likoni interchange as you join the southern bypass is also jam-packed. But then as you get onto the southern bypass, you should be A-okay. Let's keep looking at it, guys. And as you traverse the roads this morning, please be careful. Number 2, you find an area where it's good to go and there's not much traffic. Do share so that we can all partake of the goodness of free roads. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, at 2 minutes after 8, the conversation continues. Welcome to the third hour of the show. We're still live on KTN Home. We're live on SpiceFM. Wherever you are tuned in around the country, if you're in Malindi on 97.7, Nyeri on 90.9, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, or 94.4 in Nairobi. Or if you're listening to us from wherever, Kathmandu, Hennepin. Is that it?
Hennepin County.
In Missouri.
In Minnesota.
In
Djibouti. Wherever you are, even in Myanmar. Via www.spicefm.co.ke or SpiceFM.ke on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Or if you're watching us on KTN Home, asante sana for joining us. CT, today's proverb tafadhali.
He who earns calamity eats it with his family.
He who
earns calamity
eats it with his family.
I was thinking of a Swahili equivalent. And the thing that came to mind, it was actually a book, a set book that was for secondary school. Alipanda mawingu akavuna tufani.
Alipanda mawingu
akavuna
tufani.
What's tufani?
See, it's tufani.
Toffees.
What else do you expect it to be?
Sorry?
It's toffees.
Toffees. Toffee, like the hard candy.
Okay, you know mawingu?
Clouds.
Cloud, okay. Tufani?
I don't know.
Think of the weather.
What comes out of a cloud?
Yes, think of the
Rain.
weather really going south. And
Storms.
See?
There you go.
Got it.
You knew the answer all along.
I just needed some guidance.
You needed some
So what now?
guidance.
If the what?
Alipanda mawingu
akavuna.
Ah, okay. You planted clouds and you harvested storms. Nespa? Okay.
I think it's that Nespa.
Spa. Spa.
Or is it Nes?
Yes. As we're talking about all the places that people are tuned in, John is reminding me that we have John from Warufaga who also listens in every morning.
Which
John from where?
Warufaga.
Okay.
That's the name of the place.
Is that a real place?
Yes, it is. But if you anglicize, then it's Albagon.
If you do.
Anglicize it.
It's Albagon.
Make it English user friendly. It's Albagon. But it's in reality it is?
It's Warufaga.
Wafaraga. Huh?
Don't get your tongue twisted, my dear.
Get with the program. So, curfew in place. 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. until 4 a.m. Enforcement of curfew in place now, especially in Nairobi. And the administration insists that, well, we have got to remind you that there's curfew in place. When we've got to play our part in enforcing the curfew, we'd please like you to play your part in observing the curfew hours. And the citizens have been trying to observe the curfew hours. And the photos that we've seen in the media of people getting caught up in traffic from as early as 2:30 p.m. because they have, just the example I gave yesterday, you have left your workplace in industrial area and you're trying to go to Kino, and you know there's a construction in industrial area of roads, there's construction on Uhuru Highway, on Waiyaki Way, on that other part
Eric,
of the
there's
road.
construction everywhere.
Everywhere.
Just
Just-
put it that way. Everywhere.
Kenya is under construction.
Kenya is definitely under construction.
So people are having to leave their work early. Now, those who can afford, many cannot afford to leave your work early. Because you leave your work early, even if you close your business early, it means you're basically foregoing potential to earn an income. So many of them are getting now caught up between at what point do I really close? At what point do I leave? And then once I get to the bus stop, will I get a matatu on time? That matatu, once I board it, will it be able to take me home on time? People boarding matatus at 6 p.m. and getting home at 9 p.m. Because again, Kenya is under construction. All these things combined, put together, shaken, spilling over, it becomes what? Chaos and pandemonium. We discussed this yesterday on, okay, so there are those who are willfully non-compliant. And there are those who are willing to comply and going to great lengths to try and comply. All of them are caught up in a traffic snarl-up. All of them are they caught up in a roadblock by police officers. 2 opinion pieces written in today's major dailies. One in the Standard, the boiling point, page 18 of the Standard. This is authored by Julie Masiga, a peace and security editor at the Standard Group. She says, fellow Kenyans, we need not be this hard-headed. She starts by saying, implementation is always a problem in these parts. That plus the common sense to follow rules. Sorry, there's a common.
Nice slip there.
There's a panya route somewhere, anywhere, a Kenyan will find it and exploit it. And that's how motorists got caught up on Thika Road last Saturday night. The curfew rules are very clear. Unless you're an essential worker, you need to be off the road by 8 p.m. That's it. There's nothing that needs to be interpreted or analyzed. Just let 8 p.m. find you in the house. But because the cops were not enforcing the rule consistently, folks decided to contort it into a pretzel, which is typical of us. If there's no supervision, things don't work. That is boiling point. Masharia Gaido writes this on the Daily Nation, page 16 today, that blockade was payday for violators. Let's face it, true, the Saturday night blockade was extreme and so badly managed it punished the innocent amongst the curfew violators. It provided no passage for those with genuine excuse to be out at that time, including essential service personnel or those simply caught up in traffic while heading home from legitimate pursuits. The fact, however, is that the vast majority of those caught up in the dragnet were curfew violators. We are dealing here not with innocents caught up in the gridlock, but exemplars of the serial indiscipline that is the bane of this country. 2 senior editors in this country basically saying, look, let's face it, yes, the police, the government has done this, but also, can we point out what is happening here? Sin, stones, glass houses. This is exactly it.
May I add something to this? I've been thinking about this, but I keep asking myself the question how we got here. How we became unruly, and yet we are looking at the actions and not understanding the cause. Because what seems to be predominant in this discussion is impunity that seems to have become the norm in this country. Not with the high and mighty, but with everyone who thinks that they can put it into operation. Remember the question that we asked earlier when we were talking to Bill Okero, and the question about the money, the borrowing, 8 trillion, where it goes. And I said, we do know where it goes. You see, the Kenyan, we talk about manufacturing, we talk about exports. Well, we talk about it as though Kenya is the industrial giant it was in yesteryears. The key industry for those in power and those in government seems to be, yes, the pursuit of enriching oneself, but it's not with growing value. No. It is plundering state coffers. It is the focus. And even those who don't have access to it spend their waking hours trying to figure out how best they can get onto this, what they think is a gravy train. It isn't. It's actually a death trap, but they don't seem to see it as such. So, you're looking at causal effects. You're looking at how these things manifest themselves in our day-to-day lives. I talked about all these cars with these glaring strobe lights on top of their vehicles, blue usually, and how it doesn't matter what's happening, but they must be given way. I usually wonder, why don't you just start early, since you knew where you're going anyway? Or is every day an emergency?
You mean not the ambulances, but these government type guys?
No, these government types, or these big car types, these 4-wheel drive types.
The lawbreakers, there are 2 types. First, there's the 4-wheel drives that actually have a government functionary in them.
Yes.
Usually a cabinet secretary with a flag
and a front car and a chase car.
Or
they're both called chase cars.
Right.
Though the one that is chasing the other one. Yes, but okay.
All of them are chasing.
Yes.
And then there's the new people who have this kind of money. They've bought this big car and they've tinted it, and then they've found a way of putting some strobe light. And because they're feeling important and mheshimiwa enough, they also want you to treat them that way. So there are those 2.
So they put on the strobe and they want you to give them way.
Yes.
They don't want to queue.
They don't want to queue.
No.
They are big people.
Right.
Why should they queue?
Wanakimbilia deal.
After all.
Eric, you know when
Status.
when I went for my vaccine at Mbagathi Hospital, I actually witnessed something similar. Man,
There was a strobe car.
No, the impatience. There were people who were distinctly younger than myself, but well dressed, swallowed the English language properly, okay, and they were impatient. The conversations they were having, calling so and so, why are we waiting? And I was thinking to myself, what on earth is wrong with these people?
Oh, they knew a guy.
No, they didn't know a guy, and I'm listening to the conversation because they're behind me.
And the guy had told them, you go to
Yes, you shouldn't do this. Yeah. But then I saw other people who actually just cut in. And those ones were stopped. Told Nani, just please, queue.
Because they felt they could not wait amongst the,
the
commoners.
But those queues weren't that long, just so that you understand. And they were moving. Those fellows at Mbagathi had organized themselves well. There were 3 booths you started. I mean, they were moving. That process did not take more than 20 minutes in reality. But people are impatient. I'm thinking, you're impatient. Okay, why didn't you come at 6 then? So that when they open up, you're first in line and then you can get vaccinated.
This person pays an extra coin, deposits an extra shilling in their bank account. They don't queue in the bank. Okay? You've got to understand where we are.
I do understand.
Go with the times, CT.
I do understand. And
those days when having a grey beard afforded you an opportunity, those ones are gone.
That I also understand.
Selling, my friend.
I actually understand that really, really well. Now, if the culture, the overriding culture is one of impunity, where people think that by virtue of having what they think is a lot of money, they think, okay? And that affords them a certain importance that is supposed to be commensurate with this money, which they think is a lot of money. Okay, you know, for some people, owning a bicycle is considered to be a sign of wealth. Yes. Some people owning a car, some owning a big car, even if it's on loan and you're paying for it, you're still a big person. Now, this entire thing that I'm describing, which is the manifestation of impunity, that's been my question. How did we get here? Because you don't want to be corrected, you don't want to be told you're wrong. In fact, you can't be wrong.
So is this what we're seeing? Is this an example, manifestation of such on what we are seeing on the roads, for example?
Yes.
Now, put that against what a lot of people have given as the reasons as to why they are late. I work for in a certain establishment. I can't get out before a certain hour. And by the time I'm out, I'm on the road where everybody else is at the same time. We're not able to get home or get off the roads before curfew. So there's that side of it. And like I said, there's that side of it where there are a number of people on the roads who have genuine reasons as to why they are late, mixing with this bunch of entitled individuals who feel I know a guy at the roadblock who's going to be able to make a phone call to the fellows at the roadblock and let me through. Okay? How do we explain it for those who have genuine reasons to be on the road? Because look at it. We said there's construction all over the place, right? The operationalization of this mandate, how would it have come through taking all these other things into consideration? And then I work for somebody. You've said we can do takeaway in restaurants, for example. I work in a restaurant. We finish at 6. They said we close at 7. So that means I finish up at 6. I get on the road with everybody else, and it takes me 2.5 hours to get home.
Even 3.
So how do we fix all of these things? And I want to abide by the law. I'm not even being stubborn. I really want to get off the road before 8 o'clock because I don't need the drama. But how do I do it vis-a-vis what I'm supposed to be doing for my daily living? And then there's construction. And then there's traffic. What do I do? Must I walk? Must I sleep at work? Practically, what do we do?
There are solutions that only the government can provide.
Yep.
And there are solutions that only we as Kenyans can provide for ourselves. When you're talking about people overtaking and everyone wanting to be first, you'll cause a gridlock. It's not even complicated. But we see it happening no one wants to give way. When giving way would ensure people pass and then others pass. Look, why would you need a policeman at a roundabout? Because you get the impression, some people don't seem to understand, in the roundabout, when a car is already in that roundabout, they have the right of way. But do our drivers, so you think these people who are driving, is it that they didn't understand, they didn't go through the process of getting their licenses? Or they bought a car, bought a license, and then drove? I mean, what happened? Which took precedence?
It never works. That thing of waiting for the car on the right to pass, it never works.
Even with traffic lights, it is red. You can see. You can see it is red.
In your world, it's green.
And no, motorbikes, they just seem to think that so long as cars aren't moving, you are supposed to just sort of like, and drivers do the same thing. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, do you abrogate your right as a citizen when you blatantly disobey rules that everybody's supposed to obey?
So what we are saying basically is that there is, in the midst of all these things, the inconvenience caused on people who want to comply with the regulations is being caused by people who do not want to comply with the regulations.
Yes, and I'm saying we tolerate it. That is why that impunity is continuously being enhanced. We tolerate it.
Let's look at what Macharia Gaido has written today, and because he'll be joining us shortly. We can admit that the police were actually very clever in containing us in our cars for a few hours instead of hauling us all into cold, damp, and unsanitary cells. However, we can ask for a serious rethink on whether the curfew hours and the ban on movement into and out of the virus hotspot of Nairobi and 4 bordering counties is having the intended effect. Like everywhere else in the world, we must debate if some COVID control measures cause more harm than the disease itself, especially in regard to the ravages of economic shutdowns. Finally, we must all take a long inward look at the legendary sloth, indiscipline, tardiness, arrogance, and sense of impunity that makes us habitually defy the curfew and other safety measures and then start crying foul when caught on the wrong side of the law. And please, let's agree that it'll take more than just disruption of elite entitlement to bring down the government.
Yes.
This is what Macharia Gaido says. He says, yes, there is shortcomings of the government, but again, what part do we play? Let's bring him in. Macharia Gaido, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you again on the show.
My pleasure.
Now, you seem to be hitting everybody here with that, what we call in Kenyanese, the slap of Kimanina and Kimanyoko. On one hand, you cross with the government, and then on the back hand, you cross with your neighbors.
I hope Ezekiel Mutu is not listening.
Oh, he listens, all right, and I'm sure he'll have something to say about it.
Yes, I think we really need to take to have this conversation. It is very easy to forever blame the government for trampling on our rights, for being insensitive, for being cruel, but all too often we bring it on ourselves. I am not saying that the curfew is right or that the way it is being enforced is right, but let us not be in this situation where we hammer the government for not doing anything to contain corona, and when they do something, again we start grumbling about our rights being violated. We can have this conversation. We can be sober about it, but we can also accept some realities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the realities is that quite often we are the problem.
Macharia, you looking at it, just take audit of what happened Saturday, Sunday, yesterday, and then keep asking ourselves the question and saying, is it possible for everybody to get up and just go where they need to go in time and just obey the rules? A few falling through the cracks might be understandable, but then everybody generally can do what they've been asked to do and just stick to the rules. Can we see a situation like that?
It's about organization. I think we should be knowing that if we are meant to be at a certain place at 8 p.m., then we have to know what are the traffic conditions, how long will it take to get there, and plan accordingly. But we have a tendency where we're supposed to be somewhere at 8, nothing to do with curfew, but we leave home at 8, or we leave our office at 8. And the other one is about the Saturday thing. I doubt it was not a normal working day.
It was not.
I doubt all those people were coming from work. So let's not give work as an excuse. I think we were out somewhere having fun and did not consider that it takes a certain number of hours to get home. In which case, we will be caught up by the curfew.
Or the assumption could be as well that, even if I get caught up at 8 o'clock, I will be able to wiggle my way out of the situation because we had not seen enforcement of this manner previously. So I mean, we have a general idea that okay, we can figure it out. I'll make a call, I'll talk to somebody, and I'll be able to get through. Because 8 o'clock is beckoning, it's coming, but you're still out.
That is the impunity I'm talking about. We assume that we'll be able to walk our way through all these obstacles, or maybe we are all holding a 200 shilling note in our palms, which we hope will buy us a way through. Now, when there's a total blockade, even if you pay that 200 or 500 shillings, there's nowhere to go. My only beef with the police is that they did not make room they did not make passage for those who might be genuinely out. We saw ambulances blocked, people going to hospitals blocked, or people who are legitimately out, essential service personnel and so on, all caught up in the blockade. The police should have thought a bit more and provided room for those. But I suppose they wanted to send a message that everybody gets blocked, there's no way out. And there's no room for negotiation.
There are those that have argued that, okay, after Saturday, there was that experience of what people have experienced on the roads, and therefore you'd expect that the same would not repeat on Sunday or yesterday. But if you look at the traffic situation on Sunday, people were still caught up on Thika Road for more than 3 hours. If you look at the situation yesterday, people were still caught up on Thika Road for very many hours. So it's people saying, all right, the first dragnet on Saturday weeded out the people who were out partying. Sunday and Monday, it's people who really were out there trying to earn a living and were trying to beat the curfew, but because everybody was out on the road, then they were unable to.
Sunday, I'm not so sure. I doubt many people are working on a Sunday, but maybe they're out on their leisure trips. On Monday, yes, people will be coming from work, and that is where we can now have a discussion. Should the police be more flexible for in such cases? But also, should we make it a point where we can to leave work earlier than usual?
Every morning, one of the segments that we have on the show, Masharia, talks about traffic. And
yes,
everyone knows, whether you're talking about Jogo Road, you're talking about Mombasa Road, you're talking about Thika Road, these roads have a jam every morning, every working day, even long before all these infrastructure projects came into being. Okay? Now, countries around the world that have tried to resolve these problems that arise from having a lot of traffic, they made it possible for there to be what we call public transportation. And these are things that people who are in the business of planning for the country and planning for cities know about. They know and they understand it. And they put these things into operation so that not everyone who has a car has to drive their car. They know they don't have to because there is reliable transportation. Would you say that thinking along these lines and providing reliable public transportation would help ease some of these problems we keep talking about with regards to congestion?
Of course, reliable public transportation in any city which wants to call itself modern is not even something worth discussing because it should have been there 50 years ago. But right now we don't have it. But I know if I have a plane to catch and that plane leaves at 6 p.m. and I am supposed to be at the airport by 4 to check in at 4 p.m.
Yep.
I will look at what are the traffic conditions between my place, wherever I am coming from, and Mombasa Road. How long will it take me to get there? And I will plan accordingly. I will not expect that the plane will wait for me because I'm caught up in the traffic jam.
Yeah.
It will not wait. The same thing with the curfew. You plan properly. Let us plan properly.
Do you feel that police are exhibiting a level of high-handedness as they've been accused of when it comes to now this enforcement that we are seeing? Because we heard in no uncertain terms from the commander the other day. He said, look, you know what? We're not going to play around with this thing. You come after 8 o'clock, we will be here with you on the roads until 4 in the morning. That's what we're going to do. And then we've seen today that a lot of people are saying, well, it's a bit too much. You're violating people's rights, number one, and then you're being high-handed then in your operation of this thing. Do you think that that's what's being exhibited here?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Macharia, but let's answer that question when we come out of this break. It's 28 minutes after 8 o'clock. Time for a break here on KTN Home, on Spice FM, and online. We're having a conversation with veteran journalist Macharia Gaido. He has said today, blockade was payday for violators, and asking, so what role did the citizens play in a snarl-up and inconvenience that was witnessed on Sunday, last night? There's also another opinion piece written by Julie Masiga on The Standard today. She says, fellow Kenyans, we need not be this hard-headed. And she's also raising the same questions that Macharia is raising. That's a conversation we're having. Keep it right here. We'll be back shortly.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive, and of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
It's cloudy in Nairobi this morning. Light rain in some parts of the city. Highs of 24 and lows of 17. It's also raining in Nyeri at 17. Highs of 24, lows of 15 today. The low will be recorded at 14 in Nakuru, where it's mostly cloudy at 18. Highs of 27 today. 24 will be the high in Eldoret. It's mostly cloudy now at 18. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 21. Highs of 27. Highs of 26 in Kakamega today. Mostly cloudy conditions at 20. Sunny conditions in Mombasa at 26. Highs of 32. Lows of 25. Lows of 25 and highs of 31 in Malindi. All right, we're looking at rain showers in Kampala. At 21, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 20. Light rain in Dar es Salaam at 23, highs of 25 and lows of 23. It's sunny in Johannesburg at 10. That'll be the low as well, highs of 21. 33 will be the high in Lagos today, where it's mostly clear at 26. And in Kinshasa, it's 23 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 24.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
All right, so heavy traffic this morning already on Thika Road, all the way from Blue Post, moving towards Muranga, but it's moving this morning. It's not too much of an issue right now. It's likely to clog up and get heavier as the minutes tick by, so watch out for that one. We will see heavy traffic on Thika Road today. Not sure the reasons why, but it's in both directions. On Mombasa Road today, also we see heading towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Get stuck there. Everybody's going to go towards Bagathi Way and towards Langata Road and then out towards Bagathi Way, or then round towards Aerodrome. That's where you're going to go. Bunyala Road, coming in from the city, you will use Bunyala Road, go towards Baricho, and then out towards Workshop Road onto Mombasa Road if you're headed in that direction, or into Industrial Area. Industrial Area also is where there's still some traffic this morning. Headed out towards Jogo Road and onto Landis into the CBD. The bypasses are your friends this morning. It's doing really well on all bypasses, major ones in and out of the city. So use those. Let's talk when we need to. Spice FM KE. Don't forget that's us on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
Okay, 28 minutes to 9 o'clock. Having a conversation about enforcing of the curfew and other COVID-19 containment measures. Joining us on the line is veteran journalist Macharia Gaido. And Macharia, just before we went to the break, Ndu had asked you whether you think the police are being heavy-handed. But before you respond to that, let's also hear an input from Malcolm, who's calling in from Mombasa. Good morning, Malcolm.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, it's my contribution. I don't think it's about the curfew, neither is it about the lockdown. Or I think it's all about self-discipline and timing to yourself, because this thing has always been there in terms of the rushing. Actually, in Kenya, no one wants to give you time. When someone is late to a place, he or he thinks he's got the right to be there. It's not a matter whether he's a big man or he's got more money. It's all about people want to be fast. But when you compare to it, actually, I did my studies actually in a European country. This is Poland. People there actually are they in a very small villages where there are no traffic lights or where there are no kind of police. But people are very disciplined. Even at the shop, when someone gets you there, he waits for you to finish the line. But when you come back to Kenya, when someone gets you there at the shop, simply because he has got a big wallet, has got a chest, you want to push you aside, and you are there waiting for you to budget your thing. So I don't think if it's all about the curfew, it's all about self-discipline. So if you know the curfew maybe starts at 8, there's no punishment for you arriving early at home. There's no punishment for you getting into the office earlier. I know you're making money or you're employed, but your boss understands actually you're supposed to be maybe in Gong or you're supposed to be at Thika. So why shouldn't you just get earlier at around maybe 5? You're leaving the office. Why should you be waiting until the last minute? So it's all about people in Kenya like doing things at the last minute. When you realize like 5 minutes to time is like, oh, it's now that I should be going. When you tell someone, let's meet at 7 is when he's waking up. Is that when you ask him, uko wapi, anakuambia nimepanda matatu, niko njiani nakuja, na ndio wewe ndio umemwamsha umempigia. It's all about self-discipline. It's not about the curfew. It's not about the government. It's all about the personal self-discipline.
Thank you very much, Malcolm. This is basically a reflection of who we have become as a people. You know, it's that last 8 a.m. is a suggestion. 8 p.m. is a suggestion. That's the... So curfew starts at 8. It means any time after 8, I can now be home.
So long as you start the time with 8, it's still okay.
Macharia, do you think the cops are being overzealous and heavy-handed?
Yes, to an extent. There can always be room for some flexibility. And of course, when they block the entire road and not make room for emergency service vehicles, essential services, or those who may be legitimately out, or what you might call humanitarian cases. We saw the case of the lady with a sick child trying to get to hospital. There has to be room. There has to be flexibility for such cases. When they impose a total blockade, then it leaves no room to consider what you might call the necessary cases. In that case, they are being overzealous. But also we come from an environment where many of us had gotten used to negotiating our way through. This time there is no room for negotiation. And most of that negotiation is actually illegitimate. It is bribing the cop on the beat, the cop on the manning the roadblock. Now that opportunity was not provided. Also, there was no provision for those people who call themselves VIPs. You know those fellows who drive worse than matatus with their big four-wheel drive cars. There was no provision for them either. They all got caught up in the same shit. Sorry.
The same, yes.
And this is where the problem comes in, that we, just like Malcolm was saying, it's not just on the roads, it's not just on beating the curfew, it's not just on obeying the law, it's on everything else that people do in very many instances where, that example he gave, you are actually there being attended to by a shopkeeper and somebody else comes and they're already screaming from the back, uko na maziwa, nipatie maziwa mbili. They don't even know whether you're at an M-Pesa shop, you're transacting. Nataka ku withdraw. There's somebody. And it's basically like the bad manners that has become normal.
Look at the way we're operating even now. Bars and nightclubs operating as if there is no COVID. marketplace is operating as if there is no COVID. All that business is still going on.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, I still want to look back and say, there's that side of people misbehaving. There's a side of people wanting to obey the rules, people wanting to do things right, but the situation does not allow them. Basically, it's not conducive for them to obey an 8 p.m. curfew. I've seen a comment on social media where Becky is saying, Mr. Gaido, with all due respect, we would like to leave, but remember we are employees of somebody. And this person has just reopened their business after the suffering that they underwent last year, and they're trying to maximize the opening hours of the business. So they'll tell us to leave work at 6. If we leave work at 6, knowing that, we have 2 hours leeway to get home, but you're getting to the bus stop at 6:30, Matatu comes in at 7:45, you're definitely not going to make it. So it's a balance between all those things. And that's why I want to point, as much as we say, yes, we, the citizens and the police, but those who have the responsibility of planning and making these decisions at top level, I think also need to be called out here. Because they're the ones who know, yes, there's a curfew that we are saying, let's implement curfew at 8. Is it practical to implement a curfew at 8? If you observe and see that people are willing to observe the curfew rules, 50% are not, what is it that's making this 50% not observe the rules? Not the mentality of government of, oh, no, these people are kichwangumu, so let's just go and clobber them, but review and see, is it making sense? How can we facilitate such that people are actually reducing the interaction? Because this whole thing is about minimize human interaction so that we stop the rapid spread of the virus. Masharia.
And that is why I said we can have this conversation, and that night incident and the subsequent ones should provide room for that conversation. And the first question we should ask is the curfew serving its intended purpose? Secondly, can we discuss relaxing the curfew? How can we allow business to open, at the same time keep people safe, the customers and the staff safe? Can we open restaurants, but only ensure that they strictly adhere to the social distance and other hygiene guidelines? And then we can punish those ones which do not adhere instead of closing down everything. This is a conversation we could be having. But simply deciding I am not going to obey the curfew, that doesn't help. We can discuss, let's move the curfew to 10 p.m. Or let's do away with the curfew altogether. Look at a place like London, by the way. They have very, very strict restrictions. They don't have a curfew.
Yeah.
They don't have a curfew. It is up to you as a citizen to know and to respect the health measures outlined by the government. Get home in time. Stop. Get away from public gatherings, and so on and so forth. They don't have a curfew. But
then there are those who will argue, Masharia.
Observance is almost 100%.
There are those who will argue, Masharia, again, but then look at the COVID infection rates in that country and look at how they have spiked and look at how they have reached alarming proportions. I agree there is no easy solution to this, but there are certain things that the government actually can do. And one of them, and I agree with you, could be just, look, if you must have a curfew, let it start at 10. Because then all these problems we're talking about that happen at 8, you can say we'll have avoided them. But the issue of citizens becoming obedient and doing what they must do, that's a tricky one. Especially when you consider that these are habits that Kenyans have become fond of.
Why, City? Why is it that the first thing that, when a government tells people to do something, the first thing that people do is ask, why? What do you want?
Because they have reason to ask. I mean, when you have a government that has given you reason to question it, you'll question it even on things that benefit you. But again, it's habit. You see, we're now dealing with the tyranny of habit. We like doing things the way we want to do them. And we also don't like being asked questions.
Even
why
when
we're
they,
doing it.
even when you're faced with this imminent danger,
That is a secondary issue. The primary issue is us doing what we want to do the way we want to do it. So we argue, and among ourselves we say, Kenyans, we know ourselves. Someone will even tell you that's how Kenyans think. But how did we get to thinking this way? We didn't always think this way. And are we willing to change?
So what led us here?
It's incremental, my friend. The demon in the room that we keep discussing here is impunity, and its myriad manifestations. How it is that everyone thinks that in their little kingdom they can pull off the sort of stunts that they see people pulling at higher levels. That's really what it is. I mean, whether you're talking about the county level, you're talking about the national government, whichever level you want to talk about it. Even when you want to park your car in a public place and the people who are responsible for levying that 200 shillings on you, when they know you, they will want you to participate in that little crime and tell you, Mzee, you don't really have to pay. Just give me 50 bob and you can just... Everyone wants to participate in this national enterprise called corruption. Macharia, have I got it wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. But and that's what I think. It has to be an ongoing conversation. It has to be an ongoing conversation. We can look at the curfew rules. We can look at the curfew hours. We can look at the way it is enforced, and not just the curfew, all other things. But we also have to look at ourselves and as Nico said, impunity. We learn impunity as a way of life because those in positions of authority are the masters of impunity. And I've always said the road starts from the head. If I am a good law-abiding motorist and I see this bloody big four-wheel drive driving on the wrong side of the road, why should I do the same? He's not an emergency service vehicle. He's not an ambulance. He's just a big fat cat who is late for wherever he's going. He woke up late, maybe. But now he wants to use police sirens and everything else to force his way through the traffic. And in the problem, in the process, he's causing traffic jams. He's causing gridlock. He's causing accidents. But he can get away with it because he's a big boss. And then I will follow him in my small car to also take advantage of those sirens. And everybody else will follow him. And before you know it, nobody is moving.
Indeed, this is true. And this is a conversation that we want to continue having on the show. And we'll be opening up the phone lines now for you to participate in this particular conversation. Why did we get here? Why is it that we are having a conversation where two major dailies in the paper, the opinion pieces, the editorial sort of opinion pieces on the two dailies are talking about the same thing. It's pointing fingers at ourselves as citizens and saying we have gotten to a point where we casually break the law and then we start back and say, but why are you arresting me? Why didn't you arrest Ndu? And Ndu did the same thing yesterday. Look at now the kind of inconvenience that you've caused CT because of arresting me and arresting... And we do not want to accept that, yes, mkubwa nimekosea, na sitarudia. That is secondary. How did we get here? Why did we get to this place? As I'm talking about this, I'm remembering Wanjiru Gikonyo sitting here in this situation room and saying, we've gotten to a point where we have normalized living despite the government. It's like, so we've become our own little governments. There's somewhere where the government now became this other secondary or third party that is in our lives. But because the government does not provide any of these things that I completely need, and because I have an acrimonious relationship with the government where I'm seeing like the government is just violating everything that I'm doing in my day, I've decided I'm going to leave. Government, you stay there. I'm going to live my life. So when government comes and tells me be home at 8, I look back and I'm like,
hold on a minute, where have you been?
Whose life? Go home. Who's home? Do you know my home? Stay away. It's now the government trying to enforce and trying to come back and reestablish that relationship that is long broken. Maybe that's why we're getting to that point where we are. And as we say, let's look inwards. Let's also ask the government, okay, government, can you actually also look at yourself and see maybe these are indicators of how the citizens feel about you. You announce. Everybody watches global international news and they can see there is COVID.
Everybody knows what's going on.
Then you say, we have our first case of COVID. Guys are like,
You guys
you
are
want
looking for money.
There's a third wave. You want money. You receive IMF money and then the positivity rate starts dropping. You see? Why? How do we get to this? How do we get out of this, Macharia?
We need a very serious national conversation. And this one is not even covered by BBI. I think we just need a conversation where we can look at something I would call an absence of manners. And make sure that as a Kenyan learns some manners. We casually jump queues. We casually take advantage of our positions to get ahead of the less fortunate. We casually drive on the wrong side of the road. And we don't know that we actually don't know that we're doing something wrong. We throw litter out of our windows, garbage in the streets. All those small things are what define civilization. Let us agree, we are uncivilized, we are mannerless, and unless we style up, we will never improve.
We are civilized, we are mannerless. Unless we style up, we will never improve. Let's leave you at that point, Macharia. let's just leave you at that point. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We
Macharia.
hope to have that national conversation soon where we look at our... Okay. Macharia, have a good day.
Okay, good day.
0719012600. Join the conversation now. Do you agree with Macharia? He says, okay, we have gotten to a point where we've just become completely bad-mannered and we need to reverse this. And I think this has actually been accepted already. The BBI conversation, the first BBI report, talked about that. Our values. That values conversation in BBI was referring to these things that we are seeing here today. Is referring to the bad manners that we see we have as a people. Probably that's why we still are.
You brought in a yin and yang conversation here. What is it in us, the good and the bad? And it's like each of these elements are forever fighting. Is it not a conversation of most philosophers? Fighting, which one will reign supreme? If allowed, if given leeway, the worst in us will tend to come out. Laws aren't created so that good people can continue being good. No.
It's the brain in the bad folk.
Yes, they are created with the understanding that there are people who will not want to do what needs to be done. So you need to have a set of, these are not guidelines, restrictions that guarantee that they fall in line.
Let's go to the phone lines. Alan.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm all right. I don't agree with Franges. With Gaido.
Yeah.
If you reduce this thing to manners, then you are going to end up with prescriptions that can't work. You are going to say kids discipline in schools. The thing is, in society, the rulers and the ruled. And the responsibility for compliance of the law, the bigger one should be on the state, the people who control violence. The problem with our guys is that like they went and cast a huge net to catch the guys who are breaking the law, and you end up in the process you end up catching innocent people. You must be fair. Look, my brother and sister, some of the most efficient people for Nairobi City Council or whatever it is called are those brutes who chase away hawkers. And the brutes who are dragging some lady, some hawker in Kisumu. And then we say we blame the hawkers that they're indisciplined. It's the same notion my friend Macharia Gaidu is preaching there. Blame it on the victim. No, the responsibility for compliance is the state. And then they must do it in a fair manner. So if we start saying, we are indisciplined, we are, then we will come with prescriptions that can't
Alan,
work.
are you saying that we are not indisciplined?
That's another matter altogether.
I want to make it a matter
that-
together
that-
now. I mean, are we indisciplined or not? I mean, surely you're a learned man. You remember Aesop's fables. There's one particular fable where a stork was caught in a drag net by a farmer because there were all these little sparrows that kept eating his crop. Huh? And this stork complained and said, me, I wasn't eating. I just happened to be here. And the lesson that Aesop was trying to put across was, if you keep the company of people who do wrong, you will be tarred with the same brush, surely. It is true, many people who were caught on Saturday and even Sunday were not wrongdoers, but
they were in company of those who were.
I mean, how does if I take it to the extreme, how does evil thrive when people who are supposed to be good men and women do nothing? Is that not so?
I agree with you, but morality should be preached in church. But when it comes to policy, my friend, and enforcing the law, you have to be fair to the citizen. As long as the 2010 Constitution still exists in the statute, you have to be fair to the citizen. So that lady who was taking a child to hospital and was caught up just because of some lazy chaps who had been just swallowing. Yeah. I think we should protect those few people who than cast a huge, a wide net, and you catch everybody, including guys who are innocent. And I think part of the one of the things people say these days is naomba serikali. That notion. And we the middle class guys, we just laugh at that woman who was saying naomba serikali. Yeah. The point is that woman was crying that the state has collapsed. What we were seeing on Saturday is the state has collapsed. It cannot give us services in a fair manner. It cannot exercise the law in a fair manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Alan.
I beg to move.
Asante. 5 minutes to 9 o'clock. It's time for us to take a break and say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. Switch over to SpiceFM. Let's continue this conversation. Is what we are seeing in terms of about over 50% of people not adhering to the COVID regulations, is it because of our bad manners, because of our willingness to obey the rules? Is it because we just want to be lawbreakers, because we have some deep sense of impunity? That's a question we'll be asking ourselves. As we take this break, let's remind you about GenerationNextChallenge.com. It's a global challenge where you start with the local challenge, the Kenya National Challenge, for children between the ages of kindergarten to 11th grade, for them to acquire a deeper understanding of math, computer science, robotics, sharpening their computational skills, nurturing their creative abilities by connecting them to math and real life. Log in there, register your child, and they'll be able to participate in these challenges. During this time when they're at home, it's good to keep them busy, good to keep them engaged, and they win some coupons, and they also stand to win some scholarships to participate in a global challenge as well. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, 5 minutes to 9.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94 point.
Social media here.
Quite some. Thomas says, Kenyans have developed a culture of impunity. However, I must say that they have learned from the best, the elites in government. Becky says, the reason we shall question the GOK is that there is zero trust in the government. Kaiser is asking, how is reduced working hours helping in containing the spread of COVID-19? The fewer the hours, the more congestion in public areas. So the question still comes up. Curfew, certain times of the night, we've been mixing with each other during the day. Then what happens at night that is actually going to help to curb the spread of COVID-19? And the question keeps popping up.
What's going to be different?
Yes.
Where does the difference come in? But yes, at the same time, there's that what appears to be just the casual manner in which people seem to have taken these COVID-19 restriction measures. And you hear all the arguments. Go to social media, they'll tell you, bars are closed, but just walk to Gikomba Market today.
Nothing.
And show me that social distancing you're talking about. Walk to any market and show me that social distancing you're talking about. And so they're using that to justify arguing that open the bars. It's not saying that we should find a way of ensuring that our brothers, sisters, uncles, and aunties are safe when they're in Gikomba, because I'm not going to Gikomba. But those that are going to Gikomba, how do we make sure that they remain safe? That's not the conversation we're having.
At all.
It is, but you go there.
We're passing the buck.
What are you saying?
We keep, as you say, Eric, we keep kicking the can down the roads. And it's like personal responsibility has to do with me doing what I want, when I want, and how I want.
Taking nobody else into consideration.
And then, not only that, you dare not ask me. Okay? However, if something is wrong, then I know who to blame.
And I reserve the right to ask you when something goes wrong.
Yes, and that is my role. My role is to kick the can down the road and to find somebody to explain, or find cause to explain why somebody else is responsible for something that even I could be responsible for.
You throw takataka, and the question is,
why do you throw it out? No, but do you see what the leaders are doing? Okay. Why are you driving on the right side of the road? But all these big shots, when they come onto the road, they make us move. No. The question was, why are you? Why? I don't think you understand. Parliament. I say, hey, folks, all those things may be.
Did you see the political rallies?
Yes. Did you?
You didn't see what they were doing?
Did you see the rallies?
We are not the super spreaders. It is them.
Are you seeing people meeting in Isinya?
At night, no less.
At night. Are you seeing meetings happening in night? And you're telling me about curfew? Connie, there's no curfew in Karen.
That question keeps being asked. I'm of the opinion, all this talk about, bringing the government down, it's wasted energy.
It is wasted energy.
The government can do that on their own. They don't need you.
They can bring themselves
down.
A
good job of it by themselves.
If you look at what they do, they don't need you to do that.
Let's continue the conversation. 0719-012-600. What is it? Is it about the behavior of Kenyans, or is it about a government that's not empathetic to the plight of its citizens? This is a conversation we'll be having into the next hour. We'll be picking your calls. We'll also be looking at the comments on social media. We'll also be speaking to Julie Masiga, editor for Peace and Security at The Conversation, who's penned this piece in The Standard today. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, looking a lot better in certain parts. Still jam-packed on Thika Road as well as Jogo Road. Normal. We're going to see it open up in about half hour or so. And then Mombasa Road looking better already. Right around that stretch past General Motors. And then you know what to do, guys. You get to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout and then turn left on Langata Road, going towards Aerodrome. Into the city on Uhuru Highway, into the CBD. It slows down quite some as you head towards Westland. So that we expect and we understand what's going on there. So nothing crazy or out of the ordinary for what we expect for Tuesday morning. Keep an eye on things and see how they open up in a short while. We shouldn't have the headaches that we are seeing right now. But again, we'll keep an eye on that through the day. SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get in touch on Twitter. Text as well, so we can know what's going on in your neck of the woods and avoid traffic where we can, or use alternate routes where we can too.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
Kenya's biggest conversation, and it continues into this new hour, the fourth hour of the show. 2.5 minutes after 9. We want to hear from you this morning. Is it about our bad manners? This is what Macharia Gaido says, and he's penned an article, opinion piece on page 16 of The Nation today. He says, time would be better spent using the Saturday night incident to further dialogue on COVID-19 containment measures and also observing the rules. Let's agree that it'll take more than disruption of elite entitlement to bring down a government. He says, look, everybody knows the efforts to contain COVID pandemic include an 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew, restriction of public and private gatherings, and closure or limited operations for bars, restaurants, churches, and similar places of commerce. I highly doubt that a single of the victims on Saturday night blockade could stand up and honestly plead ignorance on that score, not unless they had just landed from Mars. On page 18 of The Standard this morning, Julie Masiga, who is Peace and Security Editor for The Conversation, says, fellow Kenyans, we need not be this hard-headed. This is what she says. Look, come on, people. The curfew rules are very clear. Unless you're an essential worker, you need to be off the road by 8 p.m. That's it. There's nothing that needs to be interpreted or analyzed. Just let 8 p.m. find you in the house. But because the cops were not enforcing the rule consistently, folks had decided to contort it into a pretzel, which is typical of us. If there's no supervision, things just don't work. People feel emboldened to run around like free-range chicken, poking holes in the law and then wiggling through. Even then, it's only ever a matter of time before our parental authority decides that the children are running riot, and that's when they send in the troops, and that's what the government was doing on that day. She says, put aside just for one moment all the glaring inadequacies of the current government, and let's agree on one thing. Kenyans don't listen. We are a hard-headed community who would rather live with the discomfort of constant supervision than the freedom that comes with doing the right thing, which on a normal day wouldn't be so hard. But in a pandemic, it's ridiculous. Even the government is not that ridiculous. All these restrictions that we feel are interfering with our right to a good time, they're actually for our own good. That's what she says. And she says, come on, guys.
Stand up.
Come on. We all know this is why the government is doing this. The government has said, go ahead, try and minimize your movement. But then you now want to come back and start arguing, oh, you know, there were political rallies. Did you see the political rallies? Those were super spreader events. Did you see this? Did you see the other? Do you see what's happening? Now, how only Corona only spread that night? Oh, Corona knows 8 p.m. It also goes in the house. We start arguing. And if you actually look at the person who's arguing this, it's somebody who is consuming news and they're seeing this is exactly what's being applied in other parts of the world. In fact, 5 minutes after having that conversation with you, they'll start praising Kagame in Rwanda and saying, look at how Rwanda, Kagame, right?
Kagame is our friend, the musician.
Kagame is Ruben.
Yes.
Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, and saying, look at how Rwanda has really contained this. You know? If our government could do this, same person.
You know what is of interest when you think about it? I have to go back again to the question. The police are being blamed, but I have to ask the question. And I always ask it, do we equip our police force adequately for the tasks that we demand of them? Remember, this is the same question that is asked of the judiciary. Do they have the wherewithal? Are they given an adequate budget? Are they provided with enough personnel, human resource to do what they do? There's one section of our community who are well provided for. Our MPs are well provided for. They are given grants. They are given allowances. They're even given CDF to play around with. They are given the wherewithal to carry out the duties. If you live God knows where, you are even given some fuel allowance to go God knows where. Okay? But do they do what they're supposed to do? They now want to poke their noses into things that they know very, very clearly shouldn't be going there. But because somehow there's a wind of irrelevance that has been blowing on them, they now want to blow back and say, you know, we're actually relevant. And everything that happens in this country, we're supposed to have a say. And on the things they're supposed to have a say for which they're well paid for, they do not seem to pull their weight when they should. So, as we talk about curfew, the police, when it's raining, how many policemen do you see with raincoats? Even on a nice day when it's just drizzling, how many policemen do you see with an umbrella? Kenya police. You see them with umbrellas, but usually it's donated by well-wishers.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Do we have adequate accommodation for the police? All policemen, not some, not those who are attached to special unions like, say, Central Bank and other places. All.
All.
Are they provided for? Do they have enough vehicles to carry out the duties that they're supposed to? Are they even paid adequately? So, as we talk about the police,
Even
and
on that Saturday,
yes,
when they were on the road, it started raining, and those one of those heavy downpours that we've witnessed in Nairobi
what
recently.
are they going to do?
Where would they have taken cover?
Or do we employ people who are rainproof so that when yes, it's one of the qualities. When you want to be a policeman,
It's
we
one of the
know
requirements.
waterproofed. So even if it rains,
32
doesn't
teeth,
affect you.
height,
Mhm.
waterproof.
Yes.
The author of this article in the Standard, Julie Masiga, joins us now on the line. Julie, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thanks for having me.
So you've basically come out guns blazing in this article today. You're saying we need not be this hard-headed. You're basically saying that we have lost manners.
Yes, humans don't listen a lot of the time. If there's a shortcut you can take, you will take it. And we have this curious relationship with our authorities whereby if they're not supervising us, then we don't do what's right. And we know for a fact that at one point they'll get really put out and the law will now be enforced beyond even reasonable boundaries. So this is what happened. People are just going about doing what they always do, which is what they want. Some people, obviously not everybody, and then they got caught out. And it's a pattern that repeats itself over time.
Now, looking at this, just from what you've said, I mean, very clear and simply put, because, we can throw in the reasons as to why, what, who was late. It is very clear coming from you, Julie, that, look, there's a law in place, there's a curfew in place, and the reasons why this is being done, there shouldn't be any kind of external confusion, reasoning. Follow the law and let's just move on.
Particularly because we're talking about our health. You're talking about your own personal health. A while back, Uhuru told us that security starts with us, and I was one of those people who caught feelings and felt like the government should protect me. That's a different conversation. Here, do you want to argue with an oxygen tank or an ICU bed? You have the chance to protect yourself before you get there. So it really should be a no-brainer. The government does many things wrong or half-heartedly, but in this particular situation, it's actually given you guidelines that are easy to follow. Simple, as they say, no interpretation needed. And you should just keep that in the back of your mind, that you're not doing this for an MP or the president or an MCA or whoever. You're doing this for yourself and your family and your loved ones. So really, take that initiative to do what you can to protect yourself. And for once, give the government some credit for giving you guidelines that will help you do exactly that.
One thing that you can expect today, Julie, is that there are very many people who will say that you need to get off that ivory tower of yours. You live in a place where you think it's possible for me to get home in good time. You think it's possible for me to avoid this inconvenience of a curfew and a road blockade. But then there are very many who will tell you they cannot do that. They cannot afford to actually get home at 8 p.m. Much as they'd like to, they will not be able to. How would you respond to those?
I think it's interesting. Those are two separate arguments. Yes, there are those people who can't get home on time. There are some who the employers are insisting that they work right up until maybe 5 o'clock so that they have just 2 hours to get home and they live very far away. But there are some, like me, perhaps, if you want to say I'm in an ivory tower, I am blaming exactly those people. Those people who perhaps have been working from home since March last year, those people who drive cars, those people who have a bit of extra money to spend, those are the majority of the people who are breaking these rules because they feel entitled. They feel that they can. And those are the people who need to be put in line. Because I'm willing to bet that majority of those people who caused that jam on Thika Road on Saturday were middle-class type people, and they were inconveniencing ambulances and other people who genuinely could not get home on time. So we need to deal with that sense of impunity, entitlement among some sections of the society that inconveniences us all and just makes our country run at a very sluggish and inefficient rate.
How do we get that message across then to the people who will sit back? They will not accept the role that they may have played, but they look and point at fingers and say, look, people could have died on that road in ambulances. People who needed really to get home. Children who were inconvenienced. A 12-year-old, 8-year-old who was also stuck in that traffic with their mother. These are the people who got inconvenienced. How do you get the message that you are the one who caused that inconvenience to the people?
Well, I think the police sent that message very clearly by inconveniencing them completely that night. Unfortunately, everybody else got caught up. But as I said, it's a relationship you have with the authorities. You do what you want until the government puts its foot down. So the message has been sent. If you persistently want to break this rule, then we'll inconvenience you until 4 a.m. in the morning. Because as I say, we're hard-headed. That's the language we understand. If we're told gently, clearly we've been told gently all this time, and we've not been paying attention. So what happens is the whip gets cracked. And then going forward, people think there will be a roadblock on Thika Road, or there might be a roadblock on Mombasa Road. Therefore, if I want to avoid that inconvenience, I'm going to get home on time. Forgetting the whole time that you're not doing this for anybody else. You're doing it for yourself.
But you do know that part of the reason, of course, is that obeying the law in the minds of many Kenyans seems to be you doing the government a favor. And so by doing the government a favor, they should also understand that you're doing them a favor, and they should just sort of like let you disobey their laws from time to time, because there are so many other times when you actually obey these laws that they're the ones who create.
Which is why I say it's ridiculous. You're not doing the government a favor. As I say, do you want to be shaking your fist and go in a hospital bed, or do you want to just try and get home before 8 p.m.? And that's why I was talking about active citizenship, wherein it's a relationship between rule maker and rule breaker. It doesn't work unless both people engage. What is happening is we have a government which is inefficient, and then we have a hard-headed and complaining people who don't want to do their part. So it's as Machaya was saying, it's going to take a lot of conversation, a national conversation, to get to a point where we realize that this nation-building project is between the both of us. Pointing fingers at the government all the time. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you need to hold people to account. But in some instances, there are things that you can do on your own to make your life better.
Julie, let me ask you this question. From a personal perspective, do you really believe or think or imagine that it is possible for a solution to be found, something that will make life easier for people who actually, by virtue of their work and circumstances, get caught up in these problems that we have?
My argument is, if the people who feel that they can break the rules are disabused of that nation, whether it takes roadblocks, whether it takes being thrown into cells where they're likely to get corona as well, if those people are encouraged to follow the rule, they will open the road for the other protocols to run more smoothly.
So here, there needs to be a little bit of, it's not just going to be a smooth transition. Somebody's going to have to pay the price at some point, and then, serve as an example to others. Is what I hear you saying. Those folks who are breaking the rules, they have to then, quite overtly so, then are going to probably serve as a sacrificial lamb for others to learn the lesson.
Yes, I don't know if I'd call it a sacrificial lamb. I would just call it an example needs to be made. People need to be aware that the rules need to be followed. And we've seen that simple directives, even from the president himself, are not working. So if you're going to be this hard-headed, if you want to be dragged around by the nose, then that's exactly how you're going to get treated. Beyond that, it's these kind of conversations that we're having today. It's Macharia Garido's article in The Nation. It's mine in The Standard today. It's this ongoing conversation about your responsibilities as a citizen. I feel that we have focused too much on our rights, and we focus too much on pointing the finger at where the government is falling short, which, as I say, sometimes is necessary. But as citizens, active citizens, play your part, especially in this situation. It's not rocket science. You're being selfish, thinking about your health. You've been given guidelines. So we just reinforce that message until such a time as people start to understand the way things should work.
Thank you very much, Julie, for joining us. Julie is the Peace and Security Editor at The Conversation, author of this opinion piece in today's Standard Boiling Point on page 18. Says, fellow Kenyans, we need not be this hard-headed. Julie, asante sana for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a good day.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. 17 minutes after 9, and after this break, we will ask you to join the conversation and tell us, are Kenyans just being reluctant in observing the COVID-19 regulations? Are Kenyans just being outright reluctant to obey the law in this particular case? Good morning. Kenya's biggest conversation continues shortly.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
what
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely.
Yeah, light rain in some parts of Nairobi this morning. 17 will be the low, highs of 24 today. Cloudy conditions in Nyeri at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 15. 14 will be the low in Nakuru, where it's mostly cloudy at 19, highs of 27. 24 the high in Eldoret, where it's mostly cloudy at 20, coming down to lows of 13. There's a high chance of rain in Kisumu today. It's partly cloudy at the moment, highs of 27. Partly sunny conditions in Kakamega at 24, highs of 26 and lows of 17. 25 will be the low in Mombasa, where it's 28. It's also at 28 in Malindi, going to highs of 31. But in Kampala, it's raining at 21. We'll see lows of 20, highs of 24. We'll see highs of 25 in Dar es Salaam, where it's raining at 24. Sunny conditions at 11 in Johannesburg, highs of 21 and lows of 10. And mostly sunny conditions at 26 in Lagos, highs of 33 and lows of 26. And we're looking at sunny conditions in Kinshasa at 23, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Let's look out into Beijing, where it's quite warm today, highs of 27 and lows of 13. It's 5 degrees in Paris, highs of 17 and lows of 7. And we're looking at a hazy London at 6, highs of 16 today and lows of 7. Coming into Tuesday in New York, it's 11 degrees and clear. It'll go to highs of 23 and lows of 12.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
To follow the government COVID-19 prevention directives.
So, Andy says, one can argue that the more time spent commuting in a modern ecosystem, the less efficient and productive we become. It is possible to leave at 4 a.m. to be somewhere by 8 a.m. But is this the vision of an efficient and productive society? Getting a bit philosophical here, but all right. According to Andy, the government guidelines are reactionary, same as the citizens are reactionary. We never have logic thinking on doing things. The government has a spike. Okay. Doing the things that the government has. Right. Okay. So citizens react to decisions without any solutions. That's according to Shurage. Shurage also says the caller is right on the Kenyan middle class. In fact, this third wave was caused by them. Who held parties in closed spaces? Which bars violated closure times? Who had been traveling everywhere? And then they blamed the Mlanyasi not wearing masks. Okay. Frankie Mbate says, maybe the first question you should ask is whether the prevention directives make any sense. Then we can discuss about obeying them. There you go.
So first of all,
tell us if they make sense.
Yeah.
Then we can talk about if we're going to obey them or not. Explain it to me. These directives that you've put in place, can you explain to me?
You can't come up with a law and say, you know what, you should now reduce your breathing. You should only be breathing in and out 5 times an hour. And then you start arresting me for not obeying that. Does it make sense?
Oh, you're not breathing right now. Okay. So now you need to be explaining to people the reasons why you're saying these things. And then after you've explained me for me to understand, then I can now let you know if I'm going to now obey or not.
I think actually that person is saying, before you even start explaining, think does it make sense even to you? Does it make sense to tell me to be in the house at 8 p.m.? Wewe mwenyewe ukikaa chini kwa kona and have a conversation with yourself, and you're sitting there as government, and you ask yourself, government, let me ask you this. Does it make sense
to ask people to be
to
in the house
ask
at 8?
people to be in their houses by 8 p.m.?
It makes sense to ask.
In this Nairobi.
What
in Naivasha, where
what you're
Karanja
asking is the
is,
how.
it's possible, maybe. And we'll ask Karanja now because he's calling and he's in Naivasha. Maybe it's possible for people in Naivasha to actually be in the house by 8 p.m. Maybe it's possible for someone in Gilgil to be in the house at 8 p.m. That's still within the disease-infected. It's possible probably for somebody in Ntarara or like Tok, Kajiado County to be in the house at 8 p.m. Is it possible in Nairobi? Question. Karanja, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Do and the city.
Good morning, Karanja.
Yes. In Naivasha here, it is possible because maybe we don't have so much jams, traffic jams like in Nairobi.
Actually, do you have any jam in Naivasha?
No, we don't have any jam because we are not. People here have no money, so we don't have so many private cars and maybe.
It is caused by Nairobi people.
Yes, compared to Nairobi people. You know, Nairobi people have a lot of private cars. There are so many and people even nowadays. Yeah. So there was an article which was read some time back by Wahome, which says this is an culture of man-to-man society, where the big fish is eating the small fish. Now, and as Kenyans, we have a culture of changing our attitudes. You know, we cannot go where we want to go. We obey the rules. We change our attitude. You know, come to Naivasha sometimes back when COVID was prevalent. Yeah? You see people who call themselves VIPs or vagabonds in power. They come to the supermarket, maybe a certain supermarket that I don't want to name for litigation. They come in with the fuel gathered vehicles. They just enter the supermarket, and everybody is started looking at them and seeing what is happening. Maybe the president has come inside the supermarket. Now they start do their shopping, they queue very fast, and they move out. So unless we change our attitude as Kenyans, we will not go anywhere else. Another thing is, look for distances. You have talked about the MPs. You have talked about the guy Biro Kero. Biro Kero was talking about our revenues. Our revenues are not helping the Kenyans. Unless we do like how Israel do, we put the tax, the tithe tax first before we do the government tax second. We will not go anywhere. Simply because, yes, why have not taken the tithe for the board? Maybe that's why we are having all these shenanigans. The thing is, for instance, this MP does not pay taxes. They have grants, they have mortgages, and yet they buy the same sugar where Karaja buys in a shop there. They buy the same sugar. You see, this is the attitude that we have. These people import cars. They don't pay taxes. What is this? These people, they have what we call the 5-star hotel. They go there, they eat, they do everything. But as simple Kenyans, a common Mwananchi, have nothing to eat.
So, Karanja, with all those things, is that justification for you not obeying a law? Because these people, the vagabonds in power, are behaving the way they are behaving?
You know, it's a culture. And the rest, have you read a book by Bogwa Muigai? About men in Nairobi, how they behave. If you have read that book, maybe I think you have one copy, maybe you just look to some readers, maybe they have. For instance, it is good to obey the law. Because sometimes there was a time that I was taken to a magistrate. It was just a very simple offense. And the magistrate told me ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
Hmm.
So the thing is, if you ignore the law, that is not an excuse. So if you look about our constitution now, I think there is a vacuum. Let's say that if you look, the law is about the poor, the rich and the poor. Because when somebody who has money have a case to answer, maybe it's an criminal offense, the same senator, the same MP, they are the ones that represent that person.
Yeah.
So when a poor person is store a chicken somewhere, he does not have any person to go and represent him. Even looking for the public lawyer, there is no public lawyer. He cannot hire the lawyer.
I hear you.
So these are the things that we need to put in balance so that Kenyans can feel that they have the same. No one is above the law.
Asante sana Karanja.
Thank you very much, Eric. Have a lovely conversation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Karanja.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Zachary.
Oh, hi, good guys.
Hi, Zachary.
Good morning.
Oh, morning, my sister Drew. How is you?
Good.
You love our people and the rest, huh?
Today, Zachary, you're using that other phone.
You're using the phone that you had given me there.
Let me do this. Let me fix it in a minute.
Yeah, you have many. Use the other one. Use the new, the other one, the other model. We'll hear from you. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Is it that there's an outright reluctance by Kenyans to follow the government guidelines? Or is it that the guidelines are basically flawed from birth? Came up with guidelines and said 8 p.m. curfew. And maybe this curfew basically...
There's nothing wrong with the guidelines. They are clear. They're not really complicated.
Yeah, but they're just not.
What is the what is this? Because this is a knee-jerk reaction. What is the knee-jerk reaction all about?
By who? By government?
No,
by citizens?
By citizens.
Citizens just basically telling the government, "Come on, look, it's not possible.
We can't do it."
Yeah,
you know, those who study psychology have a way of explaining certain behaviors. That's what they're really supposed to do anyway. There's something that is referred to as a passive-aggressive response. Okay. Now, aggression is clear because by its manifestation. Passive aggression is actually made clear by its lack of manifestation. For instance, if you disagree with your one and only and most dearest, if you're a man, and at 4 o'clock you're accustomed to drinking hot tea, you may find that you are given tea without milk, which you know you have bought, and the tea is not hot, it is actually cold. And whereas you drink from a mug that you know is your mug, it doesn't have your name, but it's yours, you are given tea in a tin cup. Yes. Passive aggressive.
On whose part now? The one who is serving the tea.
The one who is serving you is sending a message and telling you, you just carry on. You're going to be making your own tea at this rate. Yes. They don't say it, but the message has been, you cannot say you're not given tea.
Yeah.
You are given tea. Yes.
Related now to the current situation.
It is very simple. Kenyans, it arises from a feeling of, I think, almost helplessness. Okay? There are people who really don't know what they can do about the circumstances that they find themselves and how they can make it better. There are those who think they can because despite the biting condition that has been brought about by COVID, the pinch isn't really hard. What they have is not less, it's less of what was more. But then there are those who didn't have enough and they have less of that. So now they're actually next to nothing. When you have next to nothing, how do you then respond to this situation? If you feel there's someone you blame, and in this case it's the government, how do you tell the government that you blame them and how do you show them that you're unhappy with them?
You give them that cold tea.
You give them that cold tea, and if they tell you to be home by this time, you tell them...
You're almost daring them to ask you, why are you not home at this time?
Precisely.
Listen to this. Let me tell you, according to River Rodi, the curfews are meant to impress the IMF and the World Bank. Okay? These government people don't get the scientific sense in their heads. You limit movement on people who have no COVID. Those calling middle class are just proud people thinking they are high class and wealthy.
Well, John in Nakuru, good morning.
Morning to you, TT, and Latif.
Morning,
Morning,
sir.
John.
I really agree with most callers.
John, I think you have taken Zachary's phone. Hiyo simu yako hatukusikii.
Okay, na sasa?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, I agree with most of our callers.
Hi, John. Bado. Try calling again. Zachary, let's see. Have you
Oh,
taken John's
can you
phone?
now hear me?
Ah, yes. You
Now
have
you're clear.
You know what inspired me to have those gadgets? It is the idea of the American president having two beasts. So that when he
They're
says
not
that I'm
two.
going to be at
Bro,
when he
they're
says
not
that I'm
two.
going to be
They are more than
Philadelphia
two.
at the two,
Just like Air Force One is not one plane.
Upside, he has to be there.
Yeah, very good. You have
So
a
very
redundancy
quickly-
to the redundancy. Yes.
Very quickly, because we don't have time.
Yes.
Let me even forget about even the curfew and the COVID. Yeah. Anyone who is very, very, very keen on following the security situation in our country,
yes,
I ask them, where do you get energy to be out after dusk, leave around after 8? Okay. And with the current revelation in some quarters of how things go, matter security, yeah? I ask again, where do you get energy to even be out at 6? Let me
But
tell you,
Zachary,
Eric,
sometimes, have you at any time lived in Nairobi?
Me?
Yes, you.
I have, and let me tell you
Good.
this, yeah.
Then
me
you
tell you
will
this,
know
Mr.
what I'm going
Wali.
to ask you.
Mr. Japu, let me tell you. If it is not extremely, extremely important, by 6, I know that the bed I'm going to sleep on is less than 50 meters from where I am. Unless it is extremely important, unavoidable, yeah? Because of the situation that we are living in. And this case of, somebody said there yesterday that we are at war with an invisible enemy. Yeah? It's only that we are not seeing it, but this is the reality. If we were in our situation, no one could be arguing about you, so and so is telling me not to be at this place at this time, yeah? And let us also cultivate, even though I don't approve of government's policies all the time, yeah? We do not even need the government to tell me that if you go to Madeira, you are likely to get malaria, yeah? And these are the precautions. Do I need the government to tell me so? I have always told you that I travel via matatu, yeah? And sometimes, in fact, on Sunday, I ask some people, do you even want the government to come and tell you that you open the windows? Yeah? I mean, somebody said there, as I finish, that yes, we can talk of our freedoms, but do we ask of our responsibilities?
There you go.
You get me?
Yeah.
And I think, Mr. Eric, very quickly, yeah? I was trying to suggest that I hope you looked at, you listened to Mr. Arakere's interview with that woman, yeah? Hello? There is this he was given. There is a place where
Gail
he
King.
was asked a question. There was a question and he was asking, you know what he said? That's a lie. I wish you can get that that clip and then you put it there. So
That's
that when
a lie.
somebody tells a lie, yeah. You just
Well, look for it.
that's
John,
a lie.
John, look for it. That one of
Thank
R.
you.
Kelly saying, that's a lie. Thank you very much, Zachary. Jimmy in Malindi, good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
We're fine, thank you, Jimmy.
Nzuri sana. So first, sorry for being away for some time, but I've been listening a lot and talking there.
We are happy to hear you, Jimmy.
Yes, but there's a cold cup of tea that I have for the government. You know, when it comes to these issues about what is happening, I really wonder why this virus at 8 it is functioning in Nairobi, and at 10 it is not functioning in Kilifi, and at 8 it's not functioning in Kilifi County. And I wonder, this virus, at 9 or 10, it is the time that it's starting to function. There is no need for keeping people out of their businesses. As much as people are doing their work in the day, people can also do their work in the night. And there are people who survive by the night. And as long as the people are taking care of themselves, you cannot keep on locking people like God. This is not right. And look, example of the other day in Nairobi. You find, I've been in Nairobi, I started in Nairobi, Thika Road Primary School one time. And there was a time at Osops, we would have accidents. And the jam would go all the way to Pangani. So in case of an accident on one of the roads there, and people are blocked outside, are you going to hold those people irresponsible? You know, this is the main fact here. These curfews, it's all about showing. So that people can see that Kenya, there's a much disaster. So when they raise a point, they can be understood. We have seen beggars folding their legs, people who are walking, some putting on glasses and pretending to be blind, and they are borrowing.
Jimmy,
and this technique,
if you are appointed a senior advisor to the president, today, what would you advise him to do? So there's COVID in the country, just like there's COVID in the world. What would you advise him to do to make sure that you keep people safe?
I would advise him first not to believe that Kenyans are stupid. One. Second, the more you put these people in restrictions, and people are looking at COVID billionaires here and nothing is happening, it's the more you make these people irresponsible of themselves. And they see this is a hope. So the only and the best way you can do, you don't use force on these people, just educate them as much as they really need to know that for a gentleman above 18, when you're going to bed with a lady that you don't know, you should use protective sex. The same way that they do that, it's the only way you can just educate them that this thing is real and give them a chance and help them economically by providing sanitizers and masks in government hospitals and let people believe that this thing is real, but don't block their economy.
So let them live as they live. Let there be no restrictions at all. Let there just be a lot of information.
Yes, because they are responsible by themselves. You see, because just to finish up, for me, this is my opinion. In Nairobi, a lot of MCAs said they did not vote for Sonko's impeachment. It was done electronically. It is in the media, it's there, they have complained. Some of them even were in that. The other day, Huduma number was released. Due to COVID, and we are about to make decisions about the bill, there's the BDI and elections that are coming. Is there any plan by using of Huduma number and this new SIM replacement that people are having? Are we going to have an electronic election? And in case of an electronic election, are we going to have people who are going to hack the elections electronically? So as much as we look at this COVID, let's look at what could be inside the bait. It's a hook.
Jimmy, let me ask you this question. Are you happy with your government?
I am damn... sorry, let me not go there. I am very angry with my government. I don't trust my government. I don't believe there is a government for me. Because the government is for the people, of the people.
But can you at least be balanced about your government? Because it's like you're saying that there's nothing the government does right, and there are many things the government does that actually are right.
You know, factors that have led to economical, what can I say, when you go in economics and you read like factors that have led to a degradation of economy, of an economy of a country. It is poor government policy. This was the major policy, the major point that will earn you marks when you explain about poor government policy.
Jimmy, this country, if I may just interject, has excellent policies. That one is never in doubt. The implementation is a bit iffy, but If you're talking about policies, we have very, very, very good policies.
Okay. Excuse me. That is your opinion, and I really respect it because everyone has a right to his opinion. My opinion is that the policies are very, very fake babish. Let me tell you why. You cannot tell me that you're going to block roads so that you can reduce the COVID spread. No, that is intimidation.
So that for you doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Jimmy, we hear you, and you've said this. You've said this clearly and loudly. We hear you. Thank you very much for your call. Let's hear from other callers. I have Lydia and Ed on the line. Lydia, let's start with you in Nakuru. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Salama kabisa.
Now, I cannot say government. It is the mistake one. We are moving, and yet this thing is still on. We are told to be very careful with what we are doing with this thing, but we are not listening. Remember, I don't know if it was yesterday or the other day. Remember Zika Superhighway. Remember what happened. Many people, first of all, the cars were stopped. They stayed in the road. Then they were opened on. But they were told, remember this thing is still on.
Yes.
We cannot blame the government.
It's the people.
We blame ourselves because we are not listening.
Okay.
We are not listening to what they say. We are not listening. Even our body need an extra time to make sure that we are not yani tuharibu maisha yetu kwa sababu ya hii kitu.
Kweli kabisa. Thank you very much, Lydia.
Tunatakikana kuwa careful.
Yeah. Asante sana.
Yeah.
Mudhoni in Nairobi, good morning.
Hi, Eric.
Hi.
I wanted to say that the police have created a system that has made us thrive whether the curfew is there or not. During, when they decided that the curfew was going to be at 8, there were no police on the road.
Yeah.
People were crossing to other counties.
Yeah.
Even now, last week, people were crossing to Kiambu and moving to other places. They were not being stopped by police. So when you wake up one day and say that the Kenyans are the ones who are bad-mannered, well, the police created the system for us to thrive, you're making us perpetrators. Well, there's already a system that is working.
So wait.
So
the police created the system that allowed people to flout the rules.
Yes, people have been moving to different counties outside the disease-infected
But
areas.
how did the police make people flout the rules?
No, here's the thing. If you get to the road and you find there's no police, you move. Then tomorrow you move. The other day you move. There are no police. They are not going to stop you.
So how did they create it if they were not there?
So the thing is, the president decides that there's going to be a blockage, but there's no blockage. People cross over to the next county.
But now
and
the
tomorrow
question
I come
is,
back.
Modoni, if you've been told that there's a curfew for 8 p.m. and you've been told that this particular county, you don't move from Nairobi to Murang'a County, and you wake up, decide you want to move to Murang'a County, and you cross over to Murang'a County, but because there was no police, we want to say that the police are the ones that created the system.
So what I'm saying is, this has been happening for the last 2 weeks, and then now you're saying that Kenyans are the bad-mannered ones. Well, there was no control.
What I hear you saying, actually, Mudhoni, is that people were flouting the rules anyway. And then what happened 2 weeks later is that they got caught doing the wrong thing, and that's now what we have a problem with. Because
So
the
here's
last 2
the
weeks
thing.
you've been doing it and not getting in trouble, essentially.
Yes.
Which is not okay,
Even
Mudhoni.
even last year, when the curfew was at 10, you would find that the police would open the road for you if you gave them 1,000 shillings or so. What I'm saying is, don't say that the police are actually enforcing and doing their work. There's no system. It's just the same way the government people will create rules and then bypass them. And then when we bypass them, you blame us.
So, if I hear you correctly, you are saying that we should be allowed to just break the rules.
There are no rules, basically. They are written.
Actually,
the president himself
there are no
stand
rules.
there. Yeah, he'll stand there and tell us, oh, no public gatherings. The following day, he's in a public gathering doing a rally for BPI.
So essentially, you're saying those who had rallies and those who attended, for us to understand that the rules, these people should have been arrested for breaking the rules.
Yes. But since last year you tell us this, you do the other thing, there is no consequences because everybody should have been caught and taken to charged in court for flouting curfew. But no one has been caught. Very few people are caught. If they give 1,000 shillings, they pass. So now what rules are there?
So what you're actually saying is that for us to obey rules, first of all, what you say, rules must exist and they must apply to everyone. That's what you're saying.
Everybody.
And if they don't apply to everybody, then those rules don't exist.
They don't exist.
So we should then be
themselves
free
know
to
they
just
don't
disobey
exist.
these rules which don't exist.
If a neighbor,
the thing.
if there's a
It's a
law
system
against
they have
murder
created.
and your neighbor murders and nothing happens to your neighbor,
you're also free to murder.
The rule doesn't exist, so
the
we
rule
might as
doesn't
well
exist.
do it.
I agree with Mudhoni.
No, Mudhoni, it doesn't work like that.
No, the system has been created, and the person who is giving you these rules is not enforcing
He's
them.
the number one of lawbreaker. I
and
agree with you, Mudhoni.
Yes, even the police themselves.
So let's just
when you
all
tell
enter
us
into a
one
state of
day-
anarchy and, throw it all to the dogs is what
It has been happening. If it's not highlighted, then it never happened.
Let me look at an example. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Let's say you have a child, and the child comes home and starts using words that you wouldn't even imagine in your head, and you tell them who taught you those terrible words that you're using. They says, my friend so and so, and you punish the child, and the child tells you, why are you punishing me? And so's mother never punishes them when they use those words. So.
Yeah, let me sweeten that example actually for you, Mudhoni. Your child comes home, uses unpalatable words, and you start punishing them, and then they tell you, but I heard you and Daddy using the same language last night.
Exactly.
Damn.
That's what I wanted to tell CT. It's not outside. They're not learning it from outside. They're inside.
Yes.
So that makes it okay.
So it makes it all right then, because the person who is essentially asking you to follow these rules is not following them, and then you also go ahead and break them. It makes it all right to break the rules because the person who is the guardian of those rules doesn't keep them. Does it make it
What
okay?
I'm saying is there are no rules. Until somebody brings a camera or there's evidence, there are no rules. Because matatus had been passing, how many thousands of cars were caught there? This is not the first time people have been passing the boundaries. There are no police.
Thank you,
It's
Mudhoni.
a system that was there. So one day when you close the road, everybody is surprised. Oh, today you know their rules? Wow.
Mudhoni, thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too.
So we look at traffic. Are there
There are no
traffic rules?
Just go. What is it? Go.
10 minutes to 10 o'clock. 0719-012-600. This is the Situation Room.
There is still heavy traffic on Mombasa Road, and that's heading towards Blue Post. Rather, at Blue Post, heading towards Muranga. It's moving, but it's still heavy, is what we're seeing, and kind of like what we saw yesterday afternoon. Seems that it started quite early today. Apart from that, it's looking pretty good on Mombasa Road. What we had seen earlier has been sorted out. Where else? Coming off Thika Road, not too bad actually. Inbound to the city. Everywhere else, it seems to be fading out slowly. Shouldn't have any problems with that. Into the morning, let's see what the afternoon, however, will look like. SpiceFM KE through the day. You can text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. right. 94.4.
10. So, Ndu, someone is asking, do you know how panya roots are created? First, you know what panya roots are?
Yes, I know what a panya root is.
All right. So,
Rat root.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are they created?
Someone is happy with themselves.
How are they created? See, somebody finds a way, okay, we can pass here one day, and then it becomes a normal thing.
The reason why it's a panya root is not that because it's a root. It's supposed to be undetectable.
You can't find it. Like, you know.
Well, not easy to find. Yes.
But then, unfortunately, everybody starts using it, and it's not really a panya root anymore, is it? Because everybody now then adopts the practice and say, there's a panya root. Well, the panya you don't really know. You not normally see the rat, but in this case, people discover it, and everybody uses it.
It's a bypass.
Okay.
and it bypasses the roadblock.
Yes, bypasses the roadblock.
But even the panya route now is a place whereby the custodians of the law actually are there as well.
Yeah, the ones who are
the ones manning the panya route.
Creating them. John in Nakuru.
Morning to you again.
Yeah, the phone is slightly better.
Is it clear now?
Yes, it is.
Actually, very much.
Don't tell us you went and bought a new phone, John.
Yeah, it's not a new one. I've just moved from where I was.
Okay.
Good morning, Titi, Ndu, and Latif.
Good morning, John.
Just to contribute on what people are saying, I think we Kenyans, we have a problem in observing the rules. Curfew is good, but we lack self-discipline. Last year, when we had the first wave, there was a lot of discipline. When you move to a matatu, you could get the sanitizer, and they were carrying the right number of people. But it seems like all these things have been thrown out of the window, and unless we move back to where we were last year, where we are observing the rules. You know, that we had a teacher when I was in secondary school who was telling me, sisi wa Afrika tuna nywele ngumu, akili ngumu, ngozi ngumu, kila kitu ngumu. So I think we need to reflect back. And this thing is with us, and unless we have self-discipline, we no longer wash hands. You see, we are just moving into supermarkets, buy whatever you want. There's no social distance. This have been observing in Nakuru. I don't know whether other places are also having the same problem.
Yeah.
And now we are waiting for the government even to come and tell us that we need to keep a distance. We need to wear masks. We need to wash hands. Government is not going to do everything for us. So I think we need to move back again to where we were last year and see that this is a reality. This thing is real. Me, I was immunized yesterday, and when I went there, I didn't see many people. There are very few people waiting to be immunized. I don't know whether people are serious about immunization or there are something they are fearing. So my point is that we need self-discipline.
Let's go back to being disciplined.
Our matatus are still overloading.
Yeah.
The conductors are not having masks. The drivers are not having masks. And they are handling people from morning to evening. They don't know which type of people they have been handling all that day. And when they're asking you for their money, they bring the amount near you, asking for that 20 or 30 shillings. That's where now we are going back to getting infected.
True. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good day. Simon on Committee Road.
Yes, morning, Titi, Du, and Lati.
Good
morning. Good morning. Simon.
Now, first of all, because of what I want to say, I want to say I am not on any side of the government or the opposition or anything, but
the rider is noted.
I need to start by saying that if you remember last year when we had COVID back in March, the first curfew was at 7 p.m., which was earlier than 8. And it was ideally well obeyed. The second point is to say people, not Kenyans, but people are generally rebellious. If you look back even to school days, high school days, college days. Okay, sometimes or generally people want to go against any set rules. And I think it is what is occurring now, that people are generally rebellious.
The people are just being rebellious. Simon, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you for your call as well. Have a lovely day.
You too, thank you.
Asante sana. So as we conclude the conversation, Vincent says, there are no rules, just like Mudoni put it. Rules are meant to be followed by those who make them. If they're the first ones to flout them, then how do they become rules? How then do they become rules? I think at the end of the day, there's rights and then there's responsibility. And yes, I agree with those that say, let's also think about our responsibility as citizens so that we can then have the moral high ground to question the government and demand of our rights from the government. CT, what's yours?
He who earns calamity eats it with his family. That's calamity, something, sometimes it you seek it, sometimes it actually finds you. But nonetheless, there are people who are closest to you, they will share in the aftermath and in the consequences of it.
In this particular case, you don't take care of yourself. You actually don't take the measures to protect yourself. Then
there will be consequences. There are always consequences.
And your family will be affected.
They most certainly will, in more ways than one.
Ndu, say goodbye. Your closing remarks.
I wrote it down, what Zachary said. And it really is that, tell us of our freedoms, which is important. But do we ask what our responsibility is? We have a responsibility. Whereas there are freedoms and civil liberties and things like that, we have a responsibility. And whether or not who is following, do your part. We have a part to play and we can do it. Let's just do it.
Just do it. It's a lie. I gotta look for that clip.
It's a lie.
Yeah. It's a lie. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow morning. We'll have more conversations between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and we really appreciate you joining the conversations every day. Those who call in and those who just listen, silent listeners. Asante sana.